Chapter 720. Zhai Yarou had never seen Yang Kai's true face before, so it wasn't surprising that he couldn't recognize him at this moment. Yang Kai chuckled and greeted him. Hearing his voice, Zhai Yarou immediately woke up and shook his head with a wry smile. "It turns out you've never shown your true face, you're quite vigilant." Saying so, his eyes narrowed, and although his expression was indifferent, it was difficult to hide the shock in them as he quickly asked, "I see that Brother Yang is a little different from before. Could it be you've broken through to the transcendent realm?" His vision was quite sharp and he immediately saw the problem. It was a fluke. Yang Kai smiled modestly, not concealing anything. Both Tsangyan and Feiyu were shocked. Only now did they realize that Yang Kai had really reached the transcendent realm. Just now, they had been so happy with Yang Kai's safe return that neither of them had noticed this. The two of them also cheered up. "Little brat, if I gave you another 10 or 20 years, I'm afraid you'd be able to catch up to your martial uncle." Tsangyan laughed and patted Yang Kai on the shoulder, an expression of satisfaction on his face that Soaring Heaven sect had finally found a successor. "Brother Yang, you didn't really stay in the starfield for a year, right?" Zhai Yarou asked with some uncertainty. Even though he had witnessed Yang Kai's powerful physique, he still couldn't believe that he could safely spend so long in the starfield. But if that wasn't the case, how could Yang Kai's cultivation have broken through a great realm? "I encountered an accident there and only found my way back a few days ago," Yang Kai nodded. Zhai Yarou's expression was one of shock, speechless to the extreme. He had struggled desperately in the starfield for 3 months before finally being unable to hold on any longer and returning to Tongxian realm through the void corridor. Even so, after returning, he was praised by his master for a long time. Zhai Yarou himself also felt that such a result was enough to be proud of. But now, compared to Yang Kai, the difference was obvious. Starfield. Tsangyan and Feiyu were stunned and looked at them in disbelief. "Did you just say starfield? Could it be that you went there? Sit down and talk." Yang Kai chuckled. Everyone wanted to know the secrets of the starfield. Tsangyan and Feiyu were no exception. The four of them sat down. Yang Kai told them about all the miraculous things he had encountered in Starfield. Not only did Tsangyan and Feiyu listen with great interest, even Zhai Yarou, who had also been to Starfield before, was listening attentively. Many of the wonderful things that Yang Kai had encountered were things that he had never seen before. During the 3 months in Starfield, Zhai Yarou had spent most of his time beside the void corridor, tempering his body while preparing to evacuate at a moment's notice. Unlike Yang Kai, who acted as if he didn't know the difference between life and death, running all over the place and encountering the devastating Starfield storm. Hearing that the Starfield storm had crushed hundreds of thousands of meteorites in an instant, everyone's faces turned pale. They found it hard to imagine how Yang Kai had survived such a disaster in the Starfield. Even a Saint Realm master who was caught in such a storm would have no choice but to die. But not only had Yang Kai survived, he had become even stronger than before. Yang Kai didn't explain in detail what had happened in the Starfield storm, only explaining that he had brushed past the edge of the storm and suffered some injuries. After all, this was related to the great demon god's bone and demon god blood, so Yang Kai didn't dare reveal it casually. Taking out 4 drops of the 1,000-year demon flower's medicinal liquid, Yang Kai put them into a jade bottle and handed it to Tsangyan. Even the calmed Tsangyan couldn't help trembling slightly when he received these 4 drops of medicinal liquid. His big hands trembled slightly. His expression was filled with excitement. With these 4 drops of medicinal liquid, the 4 protectors had a great chance of breaking through to the Saint Realm. Although the difference between the Saint Realm and the Transcendent Realm was only a single step, the distance between them was like heaven and earth. The gap between them was even greater than the gap between the Transcendent Realm and the Immortal Ascension boundary. On Tongxian Realm, there was no lack of Transcendent Realm masters, but there were very few Saint Realm masters. Each Saint Realm master was a cornerstone of their respective sect, a rare and precious asset. Soaring Heaven sect, on the other hand, only had 2 Saint Realm masters. In addition to their ancestral founder Chu Ling Xiao, there was also their martial uncle who was in secluded retreat. On the other hand, a great force like Bright Thunder Spirit Religion had no Saint Realm masters at all. Now that we've obtained the medicinal liquid of the 1,000-year demon flower and little martial nephew has returned, Tsungyan, we should return to the sect. Fei Yu said softly. She couldn't wait to return to Serene Resplendent Peak and enter retreat to break through the biggest hurdle of her life. Tsungyan obviously also thought so, but before that, little martial nephew should go and say goodbye to Li Lao. This time, if it weren't for Li Lao's help, things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Yang Kai nodded. Even if Tsungyan hadn't said anything, he would have gone and talked to Li Lao. After all, in this world, only the two of them possessed conflagrated knowledge seas. From Li Lao, Yang Kai felt that he could learn a lot of useful knowledge. Master also asked me to bring you along. Zhai Yarrow chuckled. Then let's go, we shouldn't keep Master waiting too long. Two seniors, do you want to go? We won't be going. Tsungyan shook his head. Send our regards to honored Master. Zhai Yarrow nodded before leaving the inn with Yang Kai and walking towards the City Lord's mansion. A moment later, the two arrived at the City Lord's mansion and, under the guidance of Zhai Yarrow, walked unimpeded. In front of a room in the City Lord's mansion's backyard, Zhai Yarrow stopped and respectfully said, Master, Brother Yang is here. Come in. Li Lao's aged voice came from inside. Yang Kai's expression became serious. He tidied up his appearance and followed behind Zhai Yarrow. After seeing Yang Kai's true appearance, Li Lao didn't show much surprise, as if he had already known. He chuckled and said, Sit. Sorry for disturbing Li Lao. Yang Kai cupped his hands and sat cross-legged in front of him. Zhai Yarrow personally poured tea for the two, brought it over, and sat beside Yang Kai. Tasting the fragrant tea, the room was quiet for a while. Li Lao didn't speak and Yang Kai didn't dare to speak rashly. In front of him was an existence that could be described as a saint, one that was revered by all living beings in the world. After a long time, old man Li suddenly waved his hand. Yang Kai clearly noticed that an invisible force had enveloped the entire room. From the inside, he could see what was going on outside, but from the outside, he couldn't hear the slightest thing from inside. His expression becoming serious, Yang Kai suddenly realized that this white-haired old man in front of him was not only a top-level alchemist, but also a master with an extremely high cultivation. I heard Yarrow say that little brother is a disciple of Soaring Heaven sect. Li Lao asked. Yes, Yang Kai nodded. If this old master is so bold as to ask, was little friend born in Soaring Heaven sect or did you only join the sect recently? Old man Li suddenly asked a seemingly random question. Yang Kai stared at Li Lao in amazement. How does Senior know? I really only joined the sect recently, about a year and a half ago. Sure enough. Li Lao nodded lightly. Good, I won't tell you the specific reason for now, I'll explain it to you later. This old master will ask you one more time, do you have a conflagrated knowledge see? As soon as this statement came out, Zhai Yarrow's face was filled with shock as he turned to look at Yang Kai in horror. Yang Kai chuckled. Senior's vision is indeed sharp. When you saw this junior before, Senior must have already noticed it, right? Those who possess a conflagrated knowledge see are able to sense each other. The higher one's strength is, the stronger this sense is, so this old master was able to detect it. However, you don't need to worry, as long as you don't use your conflagrated knowledge see casually, even a Saint Realm master won't find it easy to spy on you. You really have a conflagrated knowledge see? Zhai Yarrow's eyes widened. Yang Kai nodded. You little brat, you really make one envious. Yang Kai grinned bitterly. Di Yarrow smiled bitterly. A conflagrated knowledge see was something he dreamt of having because he had witnessed the various mysteries of conflagrated knowledge see from his master. When it came to alchemy, what kind of help could a conflagrated knowledge see provide? As an alchemist with excellent aptitude, how could Di Yarrow not want one? However, this kind of thing wasn't something that could be obtained just because one wanted it. A conflagrated knowledge see was a kind of mutation of one's divine sense and was largely dependent on coincidences. Over the years, Li Lao had made many preparations for Zhai Yarrow and made many efforts, but Zhai Yarrow's divine sense remained the same, without the slightest change. What can you do with your conflagrated knowledge see now? Li Lao asked again. Yang Kai scratched his cheek and said somewhat embarrassedly, catching others off guard and sneaking up on them. Li Laro laughed heartily, appearing extremely happy. Not bad, not bad. This is indeed one of the wonderful uses of a conflagrated knowledge sea. A mutated divine sense is much more lethal than an ordinary divine sense. Even if an enemy is stronger than you, if they are not prepared, they will still suffer a great loss. Even their soul may be incinerated, which is a great danger to anyone. However, this is only one of its uses. Did you know that the greatest use of a conflagrated knowledge sea is in alchemy or artifact forging? Junior has thought of it before, but I don't know how to use it. Yang Kai's expression became solemn as he respectfully said, "Please enlighten me, Senior." Li Laro smiled and nodded. He was very satisfied with Yang Kai's eagerness to learn. "This time I called you here precisely to pass on my experience in this area to you. Release your knowledge sea's defenses," Li Laro said softly. Yang Kai's expression became serious as he hurriedly held his breath and opened the door to his knowledge sea. Li Laro's expression also became serious as he slowly extended his middle finger. An inexplicable energy burst forth from the tip of his finger, flickering with a little bit of fluorescent light. That finger gently touched Yang Kai's forehead. Yang Kai's body trembled as he instantly felt a pure energy carrying a huge amount of information pour into his mind. Not daring to hesitate, Yang Kai hurriedly began to investigate. This information was all of Li Laro's many years of experience in studying the conflagrated knowledge sea, how to use it in alchemy, and how to use it reasonably. All kinds of insights, all kinds of experiences, were extremely precious. Yang Kai was immersed in his investigation and gradually gained some understanding of the wonderful uses of the conflagrated knowledge sea in alchemy. It was impossible to investigate such a huge amount of information in a short period of time. After all, this was the summary of Li Laro's several hundred years of experience, and now, he had unreservedly imparted it all to Yang Kai. As time passed, the room was quiet. Whether it was Li Laro or Zhai Yarrow, neither spoke to disturb him, all of them holding their breaths and quietly waiting. Chapter 721. After a long time, Yang Kai's eyes suddenly regained their clarity and a thoughtful look flashed across his face. Reaching out, he summoned out his pill furnace and took out a few herbs from the black book space. Conflagrated knowledge sea burst out and wrapped around these herbs. Under the scorching heat, these herbs were quickly condensed into medicinal liquids which were then placed into the pill furnace in an orderly manner. His conflagrated knowledge sea then wrapped around the pill furnace and the medicinal liquids began to fuse and transform. A moment later, a fresh pill fragrance filled the room. With a soft sound, a round pill flew out from the pill furnace. Yang Kai grabbed it and carefully examined it, a smile appearing on his face. A spirit-grade pill. Compared to using yuan qi to refine pills in the past, this was much faster and more convenient. The time taken to refine pills was greatly reduced. On top of that, Yang Kai could feel that if he practiced and used his conflagrated knowledge sea well, the quality of the pills he refined would also be much higher. Using conflagrated knowledge sea to perform alchemy was on a completely different level from using yuan qi. Throughout the entire process, Li Laro and Zhai Yarrow were also completely absorbed. Zhai Yarrow watched in amazement. Even though he had seen his master use conflagrated knowledge sea to perform alchemy countless times, he still couldn't help feeling amazed. For someone like him who didn't have such an advantage, naturally he was quite envious of Yang Kai's qualifications. Li Laro also nodded approvingly, his eyes shining brightly. Yang Kai's comprehension ability and aptitude made him feel that his experience was not a lie. Yang Kai would definitely be able to thoroughly understand his experience and develop his own insights and developments based on it. Many thanks for Li Laro's guidance. Yang Kai put away the spirit-grade pill and cupped his fists respectfully. Haha, little brother is too polite. This old master actually has conditions for teaching you this. Li Laro smiled lightly. Please speak, Li Laro. This old master wants to ask, how did your conflagrated knowledge sea come to be? Moreover, from the strength of your conflagrated spiritual energy, it seems to be not inferior to this old master's at all. It was hard for me to imagine that you could cultivate your conflagrated knowledge sea to such an extent. If it's convenient, can you tell this old man about it? Yang Kai pondered for a moment and said, well, about the first question, it actually came up by accident. I once had a piece of jade true spirit and wanted to devour its energy to increase my cultivation base and battle prowess. But I didn't expect that during that cultivation, I would accidentally cultivate a conflagrated spiritual energy. Jade true spirit? Lee Laro's expression changed. You've got guts. How dare you swallow something like that? I didn't think too much about it at the time. Now that I think about it, it was indeed quite dangerous. Yang Kai grinned. Fortunately, the jade true spirit wasn't too strong. Otherwise, I would have died. Lee Laro nodded slightly and pondered. It turns out that devouring a jade true spirit can also give birth to a conflagrated knowledge sea, but this method is still a bit too risky. He asked this obviously because he wanted to help Zhai Yarrow obtain a conflagrated knowledge sea. Yang Kai's method was not suitable for Zhai Yarrow. Not to mention whether it was dangerous or not. Even if there was no danger, there was no guarantee that Zhai Yarrow would be able to produce a conflagrated knowledge sea. The element of coincidence was too big. As for the second question, Yang Kai slowly said, the reason why my conflagrated knowledge sea can be comparable to Lee Laro's is because I devoured it. I think it's probably because I devoured other people's conflagrated knowledge sea and not because I cultivated it myself. Devoured other people's conflagrated knowledge sea? Lee Laro paled. Lee Laro misunderstood. I didn't take it by force. In a certain place, many cultivator with conflagrated knowledge sea died. Their spiritual energy was preserved and I was able to devour it by chance, Yang Kai explained. Your opportunity really makes one jealous, Zhai Yarrow said with envy. In this world, although it was rare to find a cultivator with a variant conflagrated knowledge sea, there were always a few. It could only be said that the only high-level alchemists with conflagrated knowledge sea were Yang Kai and Lee Laro. Perhaps there were others with conflagrated knowledge sea, but they were not proficient in alchemy and could only use it in battle. This old master understands. Lee Laro nodded slightly. Many thanks to little brother for answering this old master's doubts. This has been a great help to this old master. Lee Laro is too polite. This junior has also benefited a lot from Lee Laro. Yang Kai quickly said, thinking about it for a moment before asking, is there something else senior wanted to tell me? Before, Lee Laro had guessed that Yang Kai had only recently joined Soaring Heaven sect, but he had not revealed the reason, which made Yang Kai somewhat concerned. A person like Lee Laro would not say such nonsense, so since he had done so, there must be some profound meaning behind it. Ian, this matter may or may not be related to you, Lee Laro chuckled, reaching out and taking out a spirit pill and handing it to Yang Kai. Yang Kai took it and examined it carefully, asking in amazement, isn't this the spirit pill I refined? This spirit pill was the one he had refined when he competed with Zhai Yarrow in the inn last time and still had pill veins on it. If it is convenient for little friend, could you please depict the spirit array used to refine this spirit pill? Lee Laro said kindly, rest assured, this old master is not trying to pry into your knowledge, he just has some doubts. There's nothing inconvenient about it. Yang Kai chuckled. In front of a character like Lee Laro, he felt very assured. Circulating his Yuan Qi, he began to inscribe the spirit array he had used before inside the pill furnace. Soon, after the spirit array was inscribed, Yang Kai handed over the pill furnace. Lee Laro took it and examined it, a thoughtful look appearing on his face before he casually handed the pill furnace to Zhai Yarrow. Take a look. Zhai Yarrow, with a confused look on his face, took the pill furnace and began examining it. A moment later, he couldn't help letting out a light sigh, as if he had discovered something interesting. What's wrong? Yang Kai was confused by this master and disciple duo. Interesting. Zhai Yarrow looked at Yang Kai with a smile. The spirit array brother Yang used is slightly different from the one we use now, it seems to be a very ancient technique. Yes. Lee Laro nodded slightly, it is indeed a very ancient spirit array, one that has been lost for many generations. Compared to the spirit array we use now, it is undoubtedly more useful. I learned it from a very ancient book. Yang Kai explained, Lee Lao, if you want, I can inscribe all the spirit arrays I know. Old Lee chuckled, there's no need for that. I'm not asking you this because I covet your knowledge, but because Yarrow and I have seen this kind of spirit array before, so I think it might be related to you. Yang Kai frowned. I'd like to hear the details. Brother Yang, it's like this. Zhai Yarrow continued, since I was a child, I have been cultivating with my master in the mountains, learning the alchemic way. After 20 years, a few years ago, my master decided to take me out of the mountains to experience the world. I have always felt that with my alchemy skills, I am invincible among my peers in this world, but in Floating Cloud City, I lost to Brother Yang, and before that, I lost to another person, just 2 years ago. Yang Kai was shocked when he heard this. There is someone who is better than Brother Zhai in alchemy. Yes, what makes me most depressed is that that person was a woman. Zhai Yarrow looked at Yang Kai with a smile. Yang Kai was stunned, but suddenly, as if he remembered something, his eyes lit up and he eagerly asked, "What kind of woman?" "I don't know, that woman was wearing a veil, her forehead was decorated with a sapphire, and her eyes were very bright and clear. She should be a beauty, but she looked a little delicate." Yang Kai's breathing gradually became rapid as he asked in a trembling voice, "Was there a lecherous old man by her side?" "Lecherous?" Zhai Yarrow looked at him blankly. It was probably lecherous. In any case, that old man gave off a feeling of disrespect. "Is that old man surnamed Meng?" Yang Kai took a deep breath. "Sure enough, he is related to little brother." Li Laro gently nodded. When this old master saw the traces of the spirit array used in this spirit pill, he had some guesses, but he wasn't sure. Now it seems that little brother and that young lady are from the same family. After all, the spirit arrays you use are the same. "Ien, that's my senior sister." Yang Kai nodded heavily. There was no mistake. 2 years ago, the one who defeated Zhai Yarrow in alchemy was definitely Xia Ningqiang. In this world, only Xia Ningqiang could achieve such a feat. There was no one else. "Which sect are you all from? Why are you all so strong?" Di Yarrow wore a speechless expression. That woman is one thing, but it seems she was born with a different physique. When it comes to alchemy, she doesn't need a pill furnace at all. She can simply gather the surrounding world energy and refine pill veins at will. I competed with her 3 times, but the result was a crushing defeat, a heavy blow to my confidence. But you're even more extraordinary, actually possessing an advantage like your conflagrated knowledge. See, I simply can't compare to you, senior sister and junior brother. She does indeed have a special physique, one that was specially born for alchemy. Yang Kai nodded, his heart filled with excitement. After searching for so long, he finally found a useful clue. "Sacred spirit medicine body," Li Laro suddenly exclaimed. "No wonder. It turns out she has the sacred spirit medicine body. In time, her achievements will definitely surpass this old master's, yet that old bastard Meng Wu Ya is still being so secretive and unwilling to reveal it to this old master." Yang Kai's expression changed. From the way Li Laro addressed Meng Wu Ya, the two seemed to have known each other for a long time, and were even of the same generation. "Senior, when you met them, did you see anyone else? I still have a senior sister and a friend with them. Could it be they're also proficient in alchemy?" Zhai Yarrow asked with a bitter expression. "No," Yang Kai shook his head. "I didn't see them. Meng Wu Ya seems to only have that little girl surnamed Xia with him." Yang Kai's expression sank, his heart filled with impatience. If Meng Wu Ya had Xia Ningqiang with him, then what about Su Yang? What about the old demon? Where had the two of them gone? There was no need to worry about the old demon. He was originally from Tongxian realm and had even occupied the body of a demon general. Besides a Saint Realm master, no one could hurt him, but Su Yang was different. She was a lone woman and her strength wasn't particularly high. What if she encountered some kind of danger? What was the reason for her being separated from Meng Wu Ya? Or had she encountered some kind of accident? Yang Kai's heart suddenly sank to the bottom of his stomach as his imagination began to run wild. Chapter 722. Seemingly aware of Yang Kai's impatience, Li Laro hurriedly offered a few words of comfort. Yang Kai also knew that it was useless to think about these things right now. Only by finding Meng Wu Ya and asking him would he be able to learn more about the situation. Taking a deep breath, Yang Kai's mood gradually calmed down and he asked, "Li Lao, where did you and brother Zhai meet them?" "Blue Water City." "Blue Water City?" Yang Kai frowned. "Ien, it's about a few months away from here, But even if you look for them now, you may not be able to find them. We met them 2 years ago when Meng Wu Ya said he would be leaving Blue Water City soon. By now, he should have already left. Li Laro said with some regret. Judging from Yang Kai's demeanor and mood, Meng Wu Ya and that little girl surnamed Xia must be very important to him. In any case, this is a clue after all. I've been looking for them for a long time but haven't been able to find any clues, so I think I should go and take a look, Yang Kai said seriously. Very well, Li Laro smiled and nodded, then I wish little brother all the best. Thank you for your kind words, Li Laro. Yang Kai cupped his fists. After bidding farewell to Li Laro and Jai Yarrow, Yang Kai hurriedly returned to the inn. This time, obtaining such a valuable clue from Li Laro was a pleasant surprise, so Yang Kai didn't want to delay any longer. After informing Tsangyan and Feiyu, he immediately set off for Blue Water City. Tsangyan and Feiyu both knew that Yang Kai was looking for their 2 senior sisters. Now that he had a clue, although the chances were slim, they didn't stop him and instead offered to escort Yang Kai. Yang Kai refused. The medicinal liquid of the 1,000-year demon flower, it had taken him more than a year to bring it back. His 4 martial uncles and martial aunt were all waiting for this to break through to the Saint Realm, so how could Yang Kai allow him to delay their important matters? Yang Kai's attitude was firm, so Tsangyan and Feiyu had no choice but to agree. They repeatedly reminded him to pay attention to his safety and to tell them if he was wronged outside. Feeling the concern of his martial uncles, Yang Kai felt warmth in his heart. Acting alone in the outside world. Yang Kai was very experienced. For so many years, it could be said that he had basically been roaming the world by himself. After a simple packing, Yang Kai immediately set off. Outside Floating Cloud City, Tsangyan and Feiyu watched Yang Kai leave before also heading back to Soaring Heaven Sect. They too had to return to prepare for their breakthrough to the Saint Realm. In the City Lord's mansion, Li Laro and Jai Yarrow also bid farewell to Aogu and the others. He embarked on the path of traveling the world. Flying as fast as lightning, Yang Kai was burning with anxiety. Although he knew his chances were slim, Yang Kai still used all of his strength to hurry along. All he wanted to do was reach Blue Water City as soon as possible and see if he could obtain any useful clues there. Crossing the famous mountains and rivers, crossing the rivers and streams. Yang Kai's speed was like lightning. Now that his cultivation had reached the transcendent realm, his speed was much faster than before. Moreover, in places where no one could see him, Yang Kai would also display his wind and thunder wings to increase his speed. The transcendent realm was not a low realm, but in Tongxian realm where transcendence could enter the Saint Realm, it was still not enough to dominate the world. Yang Kai estimated. He needed to cultivate to the Saint Realm at the very least. Only then would he be able to travel unimpeded here. He needed to become stronger, and stronger in order to have a foothold in this world. Although he was now in Soaring Heaven Sect and his ancestral founder and martial uncles were very good to him, in the end, this was not his foundation. What he wanted was the kind of strength that belonged to him. As time passed by, Yang Kai's anxious mood gradually calmed down. After his mood calmed down, Yang Kai suddenly felt enlightened, his previous perseverance and self-confidence returning to him. He felt that as long as he was given enough time, one day he would be able to stand at the top of this world and become an overlord. He had the unyielding golden skeleton and the demon eye of annihilation. Although these were all precious treasures left behind by the great demon god, only Yang Kai could utilize them to their fullest and use them to achieve his own goals. While on the road, Yang Kai didn't remain idle, instead comprehending the various mysteries he had obtained from the starfield and comprehending the method Li Laro had taught him to use his conflagrated knowledge see. This kind of change in self-confidence and mentality was like a catalyst, allowing Yang Kai to comprehend more and more about his own strength. His recent breakthrough to the transcendent realm quickly stabilized. In front of him was a dense forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and everything that entered his eyes was lush green. The air was fresh, and the energy was quite extraordinary. In the dense forest, there were many traces of demon beasts and human activities. Yang Kai flew past, not paying them any mind. Half a month later, he passed through this forest. The moment he crossed the towering mountain peak, Yang Kai felt a fresh and natural aura wash over him. This aura was mixed with a slight fishy smell. Yang Kai's expression shook as he couldn't help feeling a sense of familiarity. Back when he was still very weak, when he first left High Heaven Pavilion for life experience and arrived in Sea City, he had smelled this kind of aura. Because it was a sea breeze, the wind carried with it a salty smell of seawater. Looking around, on the distant horizon, Yang Kai saw a blue sea with sparkling waves. The wind was blowing from that direction, but because it was blocked by the high mountains below, there was no such aura on the other side of the mountain. Seaside. Yang Kai raised his brow. He hadn't expected that the so-called Blue Water City would actually be located on the coast. He had left in such a hurry that he hadn't carefully inquired about this place before rushing over. Tsangyan and Feiyu hadn't warned him either, so when Yang Kai saw the blue sea now, he felt as if he had been transported to another world. It was as if he had suddenly returned to his own world and arrived near Sea City. The masters from the Endless Sea Islands and the young girl who raised peacocks, Zhong Miaoku, flashed across Yang Kai's mind one by one. Chuckling lightly, Yang Kai shook his head and dispelled these memories before quickly flying forward. The further he flew, the richer the water attribute energy in the air became. This was definitely a good place for a water attribute cultivator to cultivate and take root. 3 days later, Yang Kai finally arrived at Blue Water City and paid a crystal stone to enter safely. Inside Blue Water City, there was a distinct smell everywhere. Most of the cultivators who came and went wore light blue robes. Because they cultivated water attribute secret arts and martial skills, they had a special liking for this color. Here, Yang Kai's true yang secret art was faintly suppressed, but it wasn't a big deal. A cultivator like him who cultivated yang attribute secret arts or fire attribute secret arts would not be willing to live in this kind of place for long. If he stayed here for too long, not only would his secret arts and martial skills be suppressed, but his own strength would also regress. Although he already knew his chances were slim, shortly after setting foot in Blue Water City, Yang Kai still showed a look of disappointment. He didn't release his divine sense to investigate, but he was certain that Meng Wu Ya was no longer here. Because Treasurer Meng's defensive artifact, the Heavenly Palace, was still in Yang Kai's hands, Yang Kai had deliberately taken it out of the Black Book space when he arrived at Blue Water City. If Meng Wu Ya was really here, he would have sensed it. After all, this artifact contained his soul imprint. Since he hadn't appeared, it meant that Meng Wu Ya and Xia Ningchang had long since left. After feeling depressed for a while, Yang Kai regrouped and began to inquire about Blue Water City. Although Meng Wu Ya had left, perhaps he had left behind some clues that he could track down. Now that Yang Kai had an alchemist identity and an alchemist token, if he wanted to inquire about information, it wouldn't be as difficult as before. Walking over to Blue Water City's Alchemist Guild, Yang Kai showed his alchemist token and asked the alchemists there. Yang Kai's alchemist token was the one he had obtained in Grand Boulder City and had never been replaced, so under the investigation of others, he was just a spirit-grade low-rank alchemist. Even so, this surprised the alchemists of Blue Water City. The head of the Alchemist Guild here, a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist who was over 100 years old, was even more surprised. Sighing with emotion, he warmly received Yang Kai. It had to be said that with an alchemist token, it was very convenient to go anywhere. Although the world was vast, almost every city had an alchemist guild, unless the city was too small. Of course, not every alchemist guild's head was a saint-grade alchemist like Old Man Do. The head of this alchemist guild was a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist. In some places, a spirit-grade mid-rank alchemist could lead an alchemist guild. Yang Kai came here to inquire because of his alchemist identity and also because Xia Ningchang was also an alchemist, so he might have had some dealings with the alchemists here. After asking, everyone shook their heads. Only one person said that he seemed to have seen this old man and young duo before, but he had never interacted with them. 2 years had passed, so he didn't know where the two had gone. Yang Kai could only helplessly say his thanks and take his leave. The clues he had obtained from Li Laro were cut off just like that. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. Although this series of disappointments was quite a blow to Yang Kai, he was not discouraged. He firmly believed that one day he would be able to reunite with Su Yang and Xia Ningqiang, as well as Old Demon. That old bastard was nowhere to be found. Over the next few days, Yang Kai kept an eye out for information in Blue Water City while also trying to purchase a certain type of medicinal herb. This medicinal herb was necessary to refine the saint pill needed to save the ancient demon clan. It could only be found in the territory of the sea and was extremely rare and precious. Yang Kai felt that there might be some here. Time flew by, but Yang Kai still hadn't gained anything. Not only was he unable to obtain any information about Meng Wu Ya, but he also couldn't find the medicinal herb he was looking for. Everyone he asked shook their heads, claiming that this medicinal herb was almost extinct and they had never seen it before. One day, a month later, Yang Kai was inquiring about some news in a medicine shop when he suddenly sensed the auras of several people approaching him. Frowning, Yang Kai turned around and saw a group of cultivator led by a middle-aged man walking towards him. This group of people didn't have high cultivations, basically all of them at the immortal ascension boundary, but there were quite a few of them and their auras were fierce. Obviously, they were all masters who lived on the edge of a blade. Arriving in front of Yang Kai, the middle-aged man looked him over. "What's the matter?" Yang Kai asked with some displeasure. Chapter 723. This group of people didn't look very friendly, so Yang Kai naturally wouldn't treat them with courtesy. He was currently in a bad mood, so if someone provoked him, it would be a good time to vent. "I heard you were looking for the whereabouts of an old man and a little girl." The middle-aged man glanced at Yang Kai and asked coldly, "You've seen them before?" Yang Kai's eyes lit up. "Is it a lecherous old man and a little girl with a veil?" The man confirmed. "It's them." Yang Kai was overjoyed, suddenly feeling that this group of people in front of him had become friendly. "Then we've seen them before." The big man nodded slightly. "Why are you looking for them? What's your relationship with them?" "You don't need to know that." Yang Kai shook his head. "You just need to tell me if they left behind any clues. I'll give you a reward." "Reward?" The big man suddenly smiled slyly. "What kind of reward?" "Crystal stones or spirit pills. As long as it's a valuable clue, I can give it to you." When the big man heard this, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise. Looking at Yang Kai's clothes, he really didn't expect him to be so rich. "Boy, you're quite arrogant." The big man nodded slightly, "But although we've seen the old man and the young girl, we haven't talked to them, so we don't know the specific information." "Then don't waste my time." Yang Kai's mood suddenly became a lot more subtle and his face became cold. The big man chuckled. "We don't know, but that doesn't mean others don't know. If you really want to ask around, then come with us." Yang Kai's eyes flashed and he suddenly smiled. "Good, take me to someone who knows the situation." The big man nodded. Taking the lead, Kai Yang hurriedly followed. The people brought by the big man also followed behind, sealing off Kai Yang's path of retreat without leaving a trace. This group of people was a bit unfriendly. Yang Kai could naturally sense it, but they had definitely seen Meng Wu Ya and Xia Ningqiang, otherwise they wouldn't have described them so clearly. What did old man Meng do to them? Why did this group of people seem to hate him so much? Even though he was aware of this, Yang Kai was still bold. He wasn't afraid at all. He followed along calmly while secretly observing the situation around him. He had been active in Blue Water City for a month now and naturally knew that there were no Saint Realm masters here, so he had nothing to fear. He followed the burly man for a long time. Suddenly, they arrived in front of a huge mansion. After entering the house, the burly man led Yang Kai through the courtyard. Not long after, they arrived at a garden. In the garden, there was a young man with a sinister expression sitting on a chair under the young man's knees. Two seductively dressed women were half kneeling on the ground, snuggling up to him like pets. The strength of these two women was not high. They were probably only at the Yuan Qi state. At this moment, both of them had a collar around their fair necks, and on the other end of the collar, there was a strange expression. There was a rope in the young man's hand. One of the women had a round buttocks. She was half kneeling on the ground, putting on a seductive posture, as if she was a puppy, shaking her head and begging the young man, trying her best to please him. The other woman buried her head in the young man's crotch, moving nimbly, Her mouth seemed to be stuffed with something, and she was whimpering. These two women were wearing very little, with only thin gauze covering their bodies, faintly visible between their breasts and legs. When they arrived here, the burly man and the group of cultivators couldn't help breathing a little faster, licking their lips as their eyes filled with lust. As for the young man sitting on the chair, his expression was even more lustful. Young Kai's expression sank. Although he had long heard that some young masters from rich families had some unusual hobbies, there were some in the central capital who liked these perverted things. However, this was the first time he had seen one with his own eyes. "Young master, we've brought them," the burly man observed for a while before realizing something was wrong and quickly saying. The young man sitting on the chair simply nodded but didn't pay much attention to him, still wearing a bone-chilling expression. Suddenly, the young man's expression changed, becoming ferocious and terrifying as he grabbed the hair of the woman who had buried her head between his legs and slapped her several times, shouting angrily, "Cheap slave, how many times have I told you not to use your teeth?" These slaps were so heavy that the woman's cheeks swelled up in an instant, but even so, she didn't dare to complain in the slightest and quickly crawled to the young man's feet, her tender body trembling. Young Kai's eyes narrowed, his aura gradually becoming dangerous. The young man straightened his clothes, glanced around calmly, and coldly snorted, "Are you the one looking for that old man and little girl?" "Yes," Young Kai nodded. "Do you have any clues about them?" "No, I'm also looking for them." The young man grinned. "If you have any information, can you tell me?" "You're also looking for them?" Young Kai frowned. "Why are you looking for them?" "Be clear about your position. I should be the one asking this question." The young man's face suddenly became cloudy as he unhappily said, "But since you asked, there's no harm in telling you." As he spoke, his expression suddenly became ferocious, his hands gripping the back of his chair as his yuan qi burst out. "I'm looking for them because I want them dead. The reason this young master fell to this point is all because of that old man. Boy, you can tell me now, what is your relationship with them? You better think carefully before you answer. If you are their friend or relative, I will let you taste all the torture in the world and then torture you to death." "That old man crippled you?" Young Kai was stunned hearing this. What kind of person was Meng Wu Ya? If there wasn't some special reason, it was impossible for him to be so ruthless to such a junior. The only explanation was that this young man had angered Meng Wu Ya. Young Kai immediately thought of Xia Ningchang. Treasurer Meng regarded the little senior sister as a treasure, so if this young man had ideas about the little senior sister, he might really have angered Meng Wu Ya. Moreover, from the way this young man acted, it was obvious that he was a playboy who was obsessed with women. Although little senior sister had never revealed her true appearance, anyone could see that she was definitely born with a heavenly fragrance and national beauty. Especially that kind of delicate and innocent temperament, it made people unconsciously infatuated with her. Thinking of this, Young Kai's face also became unkind. "My Cheng family treated that old man like a VIP, but he was so ruthless to my young master, this is simply unforgivable." The big man who led Young Kai said coldly, "Boy, what is your relationship with that old man? If you dare to lie, this grandpa will teach you a lesson. Why did he treat your young master like that? Can you tell me?" Young Kai turned his head to look at him, his eyes as sharp as a knife. The big man didn't seem to notice and snorted, "It's just that my young master is infatuated with that girl. He put medicine in the food." "Medicine?" Young Kai gently nodded. "I can see that your young master is really capable of doing such a thing. Xia Ningchang had the sacred spirit medicine body, so using medicine to deal with her was the biggest joke in the world." Although he knew that the little senior sister was safe and sound, Young Kai's heart still burned with anger. That old man was already merciful when he crippled you. If it were me, I wouldn't have done such a thing. Young Kai grinned fiendishly. "Boy, what did you say?" The big man's expression became cold as he sternly asked. The young man looked at Young Kai with interest. "If it were you, what would you do?" "Kill." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Suddenly, they all burst out in laughter. "Boy, you're really crazy, daring to say such words in my Cheng family. I'm afraid you don't know how to write the word death. In this blue water city, my Cheng family is." The big man's face was full of ridicule. Before he could finish, His voice suddenly stopped. A faint smell of blood filled the air, causing the big man's eyes to widen and his face to turn red. He felt his meridians and blood continue to swell, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't suppress them. Hong. Flesh and blood flew all over the sky. No one knew what happened, but the big man suddenly disappeared without a trace, leaving only a pool of red blood where he stood. Those who were close to him were covered with bits of flesh. This hellish scene stunned everyone, and they stood there stupidly, unable to react. The young man sitting in the chair was even more stunned, unable to believe what just happened. "I'll ask you one last time, do you know where that old man and that little girl went? If you know, hurry up and tell me and I'll leave you with an intact corpse." Yang Kai swept his gaze around, a cold light flashing in his eyes. "Kill him." The young man's face paled as he finally recovered and shouted angrily. The remaining cultivator also seemed to have awoken from a dream and began to move. Wind blew and thunder rumbled. Yang Kai stood in place, not moving, but the yuan qi in his body burst forth. The wind and thunder wings didn't appear, but the wind and thunder force contained within them converged into a territory of slaughter in the garden. The immortal ascension boundary cultivator who was caught in this whirlpool didn't even have the chance to resist and was cut into countless pieces, dying horrible deaths. The young man sitting in the chair was dumbfounded. He had never imagined that he would provoke such a demon this time. Because Yang Kai looked very young, he had sent someone to bring him back, but he didn't know that this young man's strength was not something he should possess at his age. Transcendent realm? Impossible. The young man's eyes bulged as panic filled his heart. Being able to kill so many immortal ascension boundary cultivators so easily without even moving, only a transcendent could do so, but was there such a young transcendent in this world? Looking at the cold expression on Yang Kai's face as he slowly approached him, the young man screamed, "Don't come here. I don't know the whereabouts of those two, don't come here. Then you're dead." Yang Kai grinned, and after confirming that the other party wasn't lying, he smashed his fist into the young man's head. Inside the garden, the smell of blood filled the air, but Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent. This kind of battle, for him, could be said to be no battle at all. The other party daring to provoke him was simply courting death. The two scantily clad women weren't injured, but they seemed to have been frightened. At this moment, they were staring blankly at Yang Kai, their tender bodies trembling, not daring to move. Yang Kai glanced at them, his eyes gradually softening. He didn't want to find trouble with these two women. Suddenly, Yang Kai's expression became cold as he turned his head and stared in a certain direction. Chapter 724. From that direction, a fierce aura rose up, obviously indicating that a master was flying over. The Cheng family was a powerful force in Blue Water City, so naturally it had a transcendent realm master. Feeling the fluctuations of the battle in the garden, they immediately rushed over to investigate. Before they even arrived, a loud shout rang out, "Who dares act so atrociously in my Cheng family?" Yang Kai raised his brow and stood in place, waiting quietly, not showing any intention of running away. The person who had just arrived was a first-order transcendent, the same cultivation as Yang Kai. Although there were two of them, Yang Kai didn't fear them at all. In a battle of the same realm, no one could beat him. A moment later, two old men arrived at the same time from the left and right. One of them was wearing a yellow robe, while the other was wearing a light blue robe. When they saw the tragic situation in the garden, their expressions turned cold. Yang Kai's brow furrowed because he discovered that both of these old men were missing limbs, one of them missing an arm while the other had a broken left leg. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of artifact had been used to replace their missing arms and legs, but they looked lifelike and gave off a cold metallic aura. "Little brat, did you kill these people?" The yellow-robed old man immediately shouted angrily, his eyes filled with anger. Yang Kai nodded lightly, not denying it. "Why did you kill my Cheng family people? What grievance does my Cheng family have with you?" The blue-robed old man roared angrily. "No grievance, no enmity. Then why did you act so viciously? Do you think my Cheng family is easy to bully?" As they spoke, the two old men condensed their yuan qi, apparently preparing to take action to avenge the dead. Yang Kai's calmness made them realize that he obviously had some skill, and when they tried to probe him with their divine senses, they found that he was like a bottomless pit, unable to detect any clues at all. This made them somewhat wary, wondering just where this little brat came from, possessing such unfathomable strength at such a young age. If you don't give us an explanation today, my Cheng clan will never coexist with you. The yellow-robed old man's face turned red as he clenched his teeth and roared. Sworn to be enemies? Yang Kai sneered in a low voice. Very well, let's fight first. I still have some things to ask you. The dead youth didn't know where Meng Wu Ya and Xia Ningchang went, but these two old men might know. While speaking, a scorching hot divine sense suddenly burst out, rolling up the intent domain that could burn everything, and without a trace, it bombarded the two old men. The other party was not young and had been cultivating for a long time, so the defenses of their knowledge seas were naturally not so fragile. What's more, they were all wearing defensive soul-type artifacts. But it wasn't until the soul-type artifacts on their bodies began to glow that they finally reacted. Feeling the scorching hot aura, all of them paled in fear. With Li Laro's guidance, Yang Kai also had a certain understanding of how to use the conflagrated knowledge sea. The conflagrated knowledge sea was not only extremely useful in alchemy, but also in battle. This was Yang Kai's first battle after breaking through to the transcendent realm, and his opponents were two cultivators of the same realm. Naturally, he wanted to test his current combat strength. So, he didn't show any mercy. But what he didn't expect was that the two old men would be so weak, their knowledge sea defenses easily torn apart. If it weren't for their two defensive artifacts, Yang Kai would have been able to incinerate their souls with just this one blow. Even so, the two old men still broke out in a cold sweat and quickly used their own methods to protect their bodies. Yang Kai retracted his conflagrated knowledge sea and his figure flashed like lightning, arriving in front of the two old men. With two palm strikes, the two old men's bodies were sent flying like paper kites, coughing up blood as they flew through the air. Falling to the ground, before they could even get up, Yang Kai's figure had already appeared in front of them. Like an insurmountable mountain, his figure blocked the sun above their heads, causing their vision to darken. Unable to resist, the two old men couldn't accept such a result at all. Yang Kai was also somewhat dissatisfied, feeling that he had made a mistake by trying out a cultivator of the same level. A dangerous aura enveloped the two old men, making them unable to move at all, only able to lie on the ground, a chill creeping into their hearts, as if they had fallen into an abyss, unable to even see their own fingers in front of them. Who the hell are you? The yellow-robed old man was still stubborn, suppressing the fear in his heart as he tried to inquire about Yang Kai's origins. Yang Kai shook his head. You don't need to know who I am, I just want to ask you a few questions. If I'm satisfied with your answers, I'll let you go, if not, your Cheng family will be destroyed here today. These cold and ruthless words made them tremble in fear, quickly nodding their heads. From the means Yang Kai used to deal with them, he really did have the ability to destroy the Cheng family. 2 years ago, did your Cheng family receive an old man and a veiled woman? Yang Kai looked straight into their eyes, asking in a low voice. As soon as these words came out, the two old men's faces suddenly paled, as if they had recalled something terrifying, their eyes overflowing with panic. The yellow-robed old man said, So you were with them. Little brother, the Cheng family's unfilial son made a mistake, he also paid the price, even the two of us were punished. Now that it's been 2 years, why do you still want to exterminate them? The blue-robed old man also quickly nodded. Our Cheng family has already been taught a lesson. This matter should be over, right? Yang Kai's brows wrinkled. He found that the other party seemed to have misunderstood him. His eyes flashed, saying, Your hands and legs were chopped off by that old man. The two old men nodded, their faces filled with lingering fear, somewhat unwilling to recall what happened 2 years ago. Yang Kai grinned, the dissatisfaction in his heart towards Treasurer Meng disappearing greatly. Someone daring to drug Xia Ningchang, with Meng Wu Ya's personality, he wouldn't have simply broken the young man's legs. It turned out that the two transcendents of the Cheng family had also been punished. The yellow-robed old man spoke. That senior seems to have some friendship with one of my Cheng family's ancestors. When he came to Blue Water City, He immediately entered my Cheng family. During the few days he was a guest, my Cheng family treated him with courtesy, but my Cheng family's unfilial son actually had designs on his disciple, spiking her food with drugs. In a fit of anger, that senior made a move. At that time, if it weren't for an elder from Water Spirit Temple intervening, my Cheng family would have been exterminated long ago. Even so, we still paid a heavy price. In the end, that senior spared our lives out of consideration for his friendship with my Cheng family's ancestor. Water Spirit Temple? Yang Kai's eyes lit up. You mean Water Spirit Temple? What's wrong? The yellow-robed old man looked confused, not understanding why Yang Kai suddenly looked so excited. Did that old man and the veiled woman go to Water Spirit Temple? Yang Kai asked eagerly. It should be, because it was that elder from the Water God Temple who led them to Blue Water City. Moreover, this city is the territory of the Water God Temple. My Cheng family can be considered a vassal force of the Water God Temple, said Cheng Yi. Yang Kai patted his head and stood in place in a daze, his expression constantly changing. Observing the changes in his expression, the two old men couldn't help trembling in fear. After a long time, Yang Kai suddenly laughed. So that's how it is. At this moment, he suddenly saw the light. This was truly a case of when the cart reaches the mountain, there is a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. Little brother, you? The yellow-robed old man asked with trepidation, fearing that Yang Kai would really destroy his Cheng family in a fit of anger. It's none of your business. Since that old fogey didn't destroy your family, your ancestor's relationship with him must be quite deep, so it's not appropriate for me to overstep my authority, but I killed so many of your subordinates, and one of them looked like a young master. What do you say about this? That unfilial son deserves to die. The yellow-robed old man suddenly snorted coldly. If it weren't for his blind dog eyes, how could the two of us have fallen into such a situation? As he spoke, his face filled with anger. Obviously he was quite angry. Good. Yang Kai nodded lightly, putting away the idea of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots, lightly asking, which direction is Water Spirit Temple? Point it to me. Over there, in the Endless Sea territory, the islands are the foundation of Water Spirit Temple. The yellow-robed old man quickly pointed in a certain direction to Yang Kai. As soon as these words left his mouth, Yang Kai shot out like a bolt of lightning. After waiting for a long time and confirming that Yang Kai had gone far, the two old men glanced at each other and slowly got up, their faces alternating between red and blue. Being so easily defeated by a little brat was simply too shameful. Fortunately, no one had seen this scene, otherwise, they would likely have killed him to silence him. What a sin. After leaving Water Blue City, Yang Kai hurriedly flew forward, not caring about Yuan Chi's consumption of energy. Water Spirit Temple was the force Shui Ling belonged to. It had been almost 3 years since Yang Kai and Shui Ling had arrived in Tongxian Realm through the Void Corridor in the Abandoned Earth. When they parted ways in Bold Independent City, Shui Ling had invited him to visit Water Spirit Temple, but Yang Kai had refused. If only he hadn't refused at that time, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling some regret. Yang Kai was sure that Meng Wu Ya and Xia Ningchang had gone to Water Spirit Temple to find Shui Ling. Perhaps Treasurer Meng had left behind some kind of message for Shui Ling to pass on to him. After all, when they were in the central capital, Meng Wu Ya had learned about Shui Ling's origins and had also guessed that Yang Kai might have come here but couldn't find him, so he could only go to Water Spirit Temple. This was Yang Kai's speculation, but it was likely to be the truth. The words of the two old men from the Cheng family also confirmed this to Yang Kai. At that time, an elder from Water Spirit Temple had led Meng Wu Ya to Water Blue City, which meant that he had already been to Water Spirit Temple and seen Shui Ling before that. Seeing Shui Ling meant that he indeed knew he had arrived in Tongxian Realm. Burning with anxiety, Yang Kai shot across the sea like a bolt of lightning, creating a strong wind that seemed to split the sea in half. After a day and a night, some vague traces of islands appeared in the distance. These islands were scattered, and as far as the eye could see, they were like chess pieces, scattered irregularly on the chessboard of the sea. These islands were both large and small, the small ones only a dozen kilometers in diameter while the large ones occupied an area of hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. Yang Kai's spirit shook as he realized that this was definitely the place where Water Spirit Temple was located. Close to the islands, large and small ships were sailing in and out, transporting supplies to Water Spirit Temple, a magnificent scene that clearly demonstrated the extraordinariness of Water Spirit Temple. Chapter 725. Dark Clouds Island was one of the many islands under the jurisdiction of Water Spirit Temple. No one knew what kind of changes had occurred here, but the sky above the island was cloudy all year round. 8 out of every 10 days, it would be drizzling and the air would be humid. Although he only had a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivation, he was good at managing interpersonal relationships. Although his cultivation wasn't high in Water Spirit Temple, he had taken on the role of steward. Today, he was in charge of managing the operations of Dark Clouds Island. The drizzle continued, and the weather was as bad as ever. He cursed the heavens as he directed his subordinates to transport the supplies delivered by the ships. These supplies were to be delivered to Water Spirit Island for the elite disciples of Water Spirit Temple to cultivate and use in their daily lives. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, he quietly took 2 crystal stones from the pile and stuffed them into his pocket before pretending as if nothing had happened and continuing to direct his subordinates to transport the supplies. Steward he. Suddenly, a shout came from the side. He turned his head and saw a disciple named Cuttlefish calling out to him. "What do you want?" He snapped back. At this moment, he was feeling guilty, so hearing someone call out to him like this, he almost broke out in a cold sweat. Water Spirit Temple had strict rules, so even if he was the steward of Dark Clouds Island, if he was caught stealing, he would be expelled from the temple or even have his hands and feet broken. "Steward there's a suspicious little black dot over there. Is someone flying over?" That disciple was born with the head of a deer and the eyes of a mouse. Cuttlefish was not his real name, but a nickname that everyone gave him. However, it was inadvertently passed down. Now, no one remembered what his name was. Usually, they would just call him Cuttlefish. "Someone's here?" He narrowed his eyes and looked over carefully, a moment later grinning meaningfully. "This fool probably doesn't know about the mysteries of our Dark Clouds Island, right? Don't worry about him, we'll let him have a taste of our heavenly prestige." What if he dies?" Cuttlefish asked worriedly. "If he dies, then he dies. What does it have to do with me?" He coldly snorted. He didn't even know about the mysteries of Dark Clouds Island, so he obviously isn't an acquaintance of ours. Even if 1,000 of such people died, it wouldn't matter. Saying so, he looked up at the cloudy sky and cursed, "This damned heavens, they really don't let us live." Hearing what he said, the squid also felt that it was very reasonable. At that moment, he was no longer worried about that person. Instead, he raised his head and looked forward to seeing how miserable this person would die. Flying all the way here, the first thing Yang Kai saw was Dark Clouds Island. The dense dark clouds covering the island were quite strange to him. Faintly, he felt that there was something unusual about this place, but after carefully inspecting it, he couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. Transforming into a streak of light, Yang Kai quickly approached Dark Clouds Island. There were many people on the shore who seemed to have noticed him and were pointing at him, all of them saying something, but because they were too far away and the strong wind was blowing and the waves were rolling, Yang Kai couldn't hear them clearly. A moment later, Yang Kai arrived above Dark Clouds Island. The cultivator on the shore suddenly went silent, all of them looking at him with sympathetic eyes. Yang Kai frowned, not knowing what they wanted to do, but he also didn't sense any hostility from them. Just as he was about to descend, he heard a cracking sound above his head. Immediately, Yang Kai felt a surge of electricity fall from the sky and hit him directly on the top of his head. The force was so great that Yang Kai almost fell into the sea. His whole body felt as if it had been electrocuted, his hair stood on end, and his hair stood on end. Kai Yang couldn't help but shiver as an unparalleled sense of comfort filled his heart. The wind and thunder wings seemed to have absorbed a lot of lightning energy and stored it in his right shoulder blade. The crowd below let out a cry of alarm but soon stopped, each of them showing a look of disbelief as they stared at young Kai in a daze. Being struck by a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm, besides his hair standing on end, this little brat was completely unscathed. This was something they couldn't accept. Dark Clouds Island was special not only because it was covered in dark clouds all year round, but also because these dark clouds contained a huge amount of lightning attribute energy. Normally, these dark clouds wouldn't release any lightning, only when living creatures approached them would they be stimulated. Therefore, Dark Clouds Island, which was located at the outermost edge of Water Spirit Temple, was not only a place for material exchange but also a natural defensive barrier. If someone who didn't know the inside story rashly flew over, they would only suffer a baptism of lightning. This kind of heavenly pressure was something even Water Spirit Temple's elders couldn't bear. Every half a year, the elders of the Water God Temple would use some special methods to release the accumulated lightning energy in the dark clouds. Otherwise, if too much lightning energy was accumulated, it might erupt one day and destroy the entire island. He remembered that the last time the elders had released this lightning attribute energy was a few months ago. After such a long period of accumulation, the lightning attribute energy in the dark clouds should have reached a level that even transcendence would have to retreat, so why was this little brat completely unscathed? While he was in a daze, the dark clouds continued to release lightning bolts one after another, like snakes emerging from their lair, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. No matter which direction they fell from, they would always accurately strike young Kai. The cracking sounds were incessant, and the light was as bright as day, so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see what was going on, but he couldn't see anything. This scene continued for who knows how long until the lightning bolts emerging from the dark clouds became sparse and their power greatly reduced. Only then was everyone able to clearly see the situation in the sky again. Exclamations rang out again as everyone found that the guy who had intruded into Dark Clouds Island was actually still standing firmly in midair, not only unharmed, but also with a strange expression on his face. Steward, was that person struck dumb? Cuttlefish came over and asked in a low voice. He was at a loss. He didn't know how to interpret the scene in front of him. If the other party was not struck dumb, then his strength was so profound that he could ignore the lightning attribute energy. But how was that possible? The elders had said that even a third-order transcendent wouldn't be able to escape from such heavenly might, so how could this little brat be so young, only about 23 or 24 years old? While everyone was in a daze, the young man in the sky actually slowly shook his head, revealing a look of disappointment before straightening his clothes and flying down towards Dark Clouds Island. Everyone's expression changed greatly as they all raised their guard towards Yuan Chi, secretly raising their guard. Perceiving their vigilance, Yang Kai grinned, revealing his white teeth and a harmless smile as he steadily landed on the island. "Who are you?" He asked coldly as he swept his eyes over Yang Kai, quickly discovering that this person really was unfamiliar. He had never seen him before. Everyone who entered Water Spirit Temple would first arrive at Dark Clouds Island, so if this person really was an acquaintance, He would definitely have an impression of him. "Excuse me, is this Water Spirit Temple?" Yang Kai didn't answer, instead glancing around and quickly discovering that there wasn't a single transcendent realm master on this island, most of them just immortal ascension boundary cultivators. He nodded. "This is Water Spirit Temple's Dark Clouds Island. Who is your excellency? What business do you have with my Water Spirit Temple?" Yang Kai's outrageous performance just now made He feel that this young man wasn't someone to be trifled with, so he didn't dare act presumptuously, but since it was his duty, he naturally had to inquire about the other party's identity and purpose. "Don't misunderstand, I have no malicious intent," Yang Kai smiled lightly. "I'm here to find someone." "Find someone?" He frowned. "Who are you looking for?" "A girl named Shui Ling. If I remember correctly, she should be the daughter of your Water Spirit Temple's temple master." "Looking for Shui? You're looking for the little princess?" He eyes bulged as a strange expression appeared on his face, grinning meaningfully. Everyone else also directed an ambiguous look towards Yang Kai. "Yes, I'm looking for your little princess." Yang Kai nodded. "If it's convenient, can you tell me where she is?" "It would be best if you could take me to see her." "Little brat. He Pu smiled, a playful expression appearing on his face. Although I don't know which great force you belong to, I can see that you have some ability, so I won't embarrass you. Go back to where you came from. The little princess isn't someone a person like you can approach. Saying so, He Pu waved his hand dismissively, a look of disdain appearing on his face towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai frowned, thinking for a moment before asking, "Are you misunderstanding something?" He Pu curled his lips. "That's what everyone who comes here says. Don't you want to pursue my family's little princess? I won't waste time with you. My little princess is a beautiful woman. It's normal for young people like you to think about her. This brother is also a man of experience." Saying so, a look of regret appeared on his face. "However, although I understand your intentions, I won't make an exception. If you don't leave now, don't blame us for being impolite." Yang Kai let out a light sigh as he smiled wryly, feeling that this group of people really misunderstood him. Although Shui Ling really wasn't bad-looking, and she was also quite charming, from beginning to end, Yang Kai didn't have many thoughts about her. When they were in the central capital, the two of them had gone from being enemies to friends, and after returning to Tongxian realm with her, their friendship had improved greatly. Yang Kai felt that Shui Ling didn't have any romantic feelings for him. Thinking about it for a moment, Yang Kai took out something from the black book space and handed it over. "Take a look at this." He Pu glanced at him for a moment before taking it, but after looking at it carefully, he couldn't help exclaiming, "The little princess's token? Where did you get it?" "Nonsense, of course it was given to me by your little princess," Yang Kai snorted. "Given to you?" He Pu widened his eyes and slapped his head, as if he had remembered something. "Oh right, so you're the person the little princess mentioned. Aya, this is really rude. Brother, please don't blame me. Brother, please don't blame me. If you had taken out this token earlier, I wouldn't have made things so difficult for you." "It's fine." Yang Kai shook his head and asked curiously, "What did your little princess say to you?" 3 years ago, when the little princess returned, she told me that if a young lord came here with her token, I was to treat him with courtesy. Chapter 726. 3 years ago, he and Shui Ling had parted ways in bold independent city. After learning that Yang Kai was the young lord his little princess had spoken to him about, He Pu's previous indifferent attitude immediately became enthusiastic. This person was also a lively person, and his mouth was quite eloquent, constantly praising Yang Kai for being young and handsome, his strength tyrannical, and so on. Yang Kai let him talk for a while before interrupting his chatter. "I want to see your little princess. Can you take me to where she is now?" He Pu suddenly looked a little embarrassed. If it were any other time, with the little princess's instructions, brother would have taken out this token and this He Pu would have led you there, but now, the little princess doesn't seem to be on her island. "How about this? I'll have my brothers inquire about where the little princess is, then I'll take you there." "Good." Yang Kai nodded. He had already come to Water Spirit Temple, so as long as he could see Shui Ling, he would know what message Meng Wu Wei had sent her. As for Su Yang and the old demon's situation, he wasn't in a hurry. "Then I'll have to trouble you." No need, no need. Brother, please sit down, I'll be right back." He Pu said respectfully before withdrawing, ordering some people to serve him wine and fruit platters before leading a group of people away from Dark Clouds Island. Dark Clouds Island was the outermost natural barrier of Water Spirit Temple, and it was also a place where goods and materials flowed. With so many people coming and going, it was extremely lively. Yang Kai waited here for half a day before He Pu hurriedly returned, a big smile on his face as he said, "Brother, I didn't disappoint and found the little princess. The little princess seems to want to see you very much, so she asked me to take you there quickly. Do you want to leave now?" Yang Kai stood up and walked out with He Pu. Normally, when Water Spirit Temple's people entered and left Dark Clouds Island, they had to take a boat because once they left the ground, the lightning accumulated in the clouds above the island would strike them down, but today, Yang Kai had just finished absorbing the lightning, so He Pu boldly led Yang Kai away. Along the way, He Pu introduced Water Spirit Temple to Yang Kai. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, there were thousands of large and small islands, all of which were properties of Water Spirit Temple. These islands were rich in world energy and rich in spirit grasses and medicinal herbs. The environment for cultivation was quite good. Because these islands were so widely distributed, it was usually quite troublesome to find a single person. As the little princess of Water Spirit Temple, Shui Ling naturally had her own island, and that island was one of the best among all the islands of Water Spirit Temple. But today, she wasn't on her own island but had instead gone to a place called Wind Cloud Island. Water Spirit Temple's foundation was on the sea, far away from the chaos of the mortal world and the hustle and bustle of the city. The environment was elegant, but there was only one place that made Water Spirit Temple's people angry. From time to time, sea beasts would come to these islands to wreak havoc. The monster beast of the sea was very different from the monster beast on land. Sea beasts generally had large bodies and were proficient in water attribute mysteries, making them very troublesome to deal with. If it was some weak monster beast, it would be easy to deal with, but once it encountered a powerful monster beast, even a cultivator of Water Spirit Temple would have to spend a lot of effort to expel or kill it. At this moment, on Wind Cloud Island, Shui Ling was commanding a group of cultivators to fight a sea beast the size of several houses. The reefs around Wind Cloud Island were smashed to pieces and the waves were tumbling, creating an extremely dangerous scene. The sea beast had 8 long fleshy legs, and it moved back and forth nimbly. Its ferocious mouth was constantly shooting out water arrows with imposing auras that carried extraordinary lethality. Although Shui Ling had gathered a lot of masters under her command, the vitality of this sea beast was extremely tenacious, and if she couldn't kill it in a single blow, it would be impossible to drive it away. When she heard Pu's report just now, Shui Ling almost couldn't believe it. Her mind was in chaos and she had no idea how to give orders, causing the actions of her subordinates to become chaotic, almost resulting in a loss of life. Liu Zhuo, you take command. Shui Ling's mind was in a mess, the monster beast no longer in her eyes, replaced by a look of pleasant surprise and expectation. Standing in place, she stood on her tiptoes, constantly looking towards the distant sky, as if she was waiting for something. The cultivator named Liu Zhuo heard this and nodded heavily, taking over command and issuing various orders in an orderly manner. The chaotic scene soon settled down. Quietly turning his head, Liu Zhuo found that the little princess's mood seemed to be fluctuating, seemingly very happy, so he couldn't help asking, "Young lady, what kind of person is the person Pu spoke of? Why does young lady care so much about him?" "A friend." The image of Yang Kai appeared in Shui Ling's mind, and remembering all the rude things he had done to her in the central capital, she suddenly grit her teeth and replied, "A very hateful friend." Liu Zhuo was stunned. If this person was a friend, why was he so hateful? Shaking his head, he didn't know what the little princess was thinking. However, as the little princess's retainer, it wasn't appropriate for him to inquire about the other party's private affairs, so he couldn't help feeling curious about this person. He had been with the little princess for several years now, but he had never seen her show such a varied expression like today. About half an hour later, 2 small black dots appeared in the sky, causing Shui Ling's expression to shake. Quickly looking over, she saw Pu leading a group of people towards her. Approaching closer, Shui Ling was finally able to see the appearance of this person. Her heart trembled, and her eyes quickly became misty. Just like a few years ago, he hadn't changed much, but he seemed to have matured a bit and his body was a lot sturdier. While still in midair, Yang Kai discovered Shui Ling and suddenly increased his speed, leaving Pu behind, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Shui Ling. "Beauty, long time no see." Yang Kai greeted her with a smile, his expression friendly. Shui Ling could be said to be one of his few friends. "You bastard." Shui Ling bit her lip, as if she wanted to swallow Yang Kai whole, suddenly rushing up and kicking Yang Kai. Pu, who was following behind, and Liu Zhuo, who was directing the battle, were both stunned. Neither of them had ever seen their little princess flirt with a young man like this before, so they were both dumbfounded. "What?" Yang Kai didn't dodge, letting Shui Ling hit him a few times before asking in surprise. "Didn't you die? How did you come back to life?" "Who said I died?" Yang Kai shouted angrily. "That beauty from Bold Independent Union said so." Shui Ling angrily snorted. "When I went to Bold Independent Union to find her last time, She told me you were taken away by someone and then disappeared without a trace, most likely dead. There were too many people here, so Shui Ling didn't directly mention the name coffin-carrying man, obviously afraid of bringing trouble to Yang Kai. Oh, that's true, Yang Kai nodded, not denying it. Then how did you escape? Shui Ling was shocked. My luck was good, he let me go, Yang Kai casually replied. Really, good people don't live long, scourges live for 1,000 years. Shui Ling curled her lips disdainfully. When that beauty told me about it, she was crying so hard that she didn't want to die. Is there something fishy going on between the two of you? Otherwise, why would she be so sad when you died? When I left, your relationship wasn't so good. Tell me, what happened between the two of you? Did you do something to her? Seeing Yang Kai come back from the dead, Shui Ling seemed particularly happy and didn't stop talking, asking him a lot of irrelevant questions. A little girl, why ask so many questions? Yang Kai glared at her. I knew it. Shui Ling said with a disdainful expression, you pervert, wherever you go you pick up flowers and grass. I shouldn't have let that woman get close to you, I really did harm to her. It was an accident, a pure accident, Yang Kai said awkwardly. At that time, he had been poisoned by the charm monster's divine sense and couldn't help himself. Chimph, who would believe you? Shui Ling snorted, suddenly straightening her expression and saying, in any case, many people will be happy that you're still alive. You're also happy? Yang Kai raised his brow, a perverted expression appearing on his face. I can't wait for you to die, Shui Ling curled her lips, her face blushing red. When He Pu and Liu Zhuo saw this scene, they were even more surprised. It seemed that the relationship between the little princess and this young man was not shallow. What was this guy's background? He actually made the little princess forget her usual etiquette. It was really unbelievable. It's quite lively here. Yang Kai glanced around and found that in the coastal territory near the island, a group of cultivators were fighting a huge monster beast. The strength of these cultivators wasn't low, with one of them being a transcendent while the rest were all immortal ascension boundary masters. However, this monster beast seemed to be a 7th order one, its 8 long, meaty legs moving about wildly in the sea, its lethality tyrannical as it slapped the water into the sky. The cultivators inflicted large and small wounds on its body, but were unable to destroy it completely. Pale blue blood flowed out from these wounds as its flesh wriggled, and after a short time, it was completely healed. Yang Kai only observed for a moment and understood that with the strength of these people, it was impossible for them to kill this monster beast. Its vitality was simply too tenacious. This beast seems to have set its eyes on a kind of spirit grass on Wind Cloud Island and has eaten a lot of it. Shui Ling was also a little annoyed as she stared hatefully at the monster beast. Young lady, I'm afraid we'll have to find more people to help. Liu Zhuo also saw that the situation was not good and quickly said. Shui Ling nodded heavily. Why don't you go up? Yang Kai glanced over at Liu Zhuo in amazement. This person was a first-order transcendent. If he cooperated with the others, although it would take some effort, they should still be able to kill this sea beast, but instead of helping, he chose to remain here and take command, not showing any intention of helping. Liu Zhuo glanced over at Yang Kai and coldly snorted, if I go up, who will protect young lady's safety? Yang Kai was surprised and didn't say anything more. Shui Ling seemed to still be a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator, unable to break through to the transcendent realm. When she separated from Yang Kai, her cultivation was at this level, but now 3 years had passed and she still hadn't broken through to the transcendent realm, showing just how difficult it was to break through. Chapter 727. Shui Ling's identity was very noble, so it was natural for Liu Zhuo to have such concerns. Yang Kai wasn't in a position to comment on this matter. This was someone else's territory. If he were to speak out of turn, it would only be annoying. Shui Ling spat out her tongue at Yang Kai before turning to Liu Zhuo and saying, You go, the sooner you can deal with that guy, the better. But young lady. Liu Zhuo frowned, obviously not willing. His duty was to protect Shui Ling, everything else was secondary. If I tell you to go then just go, what are you nagging about? I'm in a hurry to talk to that bastard. Shui Ling glared at him before softly comforting him. Don't worry, I'll hide here, and with this bastard here, even if that monster beast rushes over, I'm afraid it won't be able to do anything to me, right? Her last sentence was directed to Yang Kai. Yang Kai just chuckled and didn't answer directly. A seventh-order monster beast. Although it was huge and its strength wasn't weak, Yang Kai was confident he could kill it. However, he didn't want to incur the wrath of others, so he didn't want to attract too much hatred. Go, what are you still standing here for? Shui Ling saw Liu Zhuo not moving and couldn't help urging him. Liu Zhuo shot a cold glare towards Yang Kai and bitterly said, Little brat, look after the young lady carefully, don't let anything happen to her. Don't worry, Yang Kai nodded. Liu Zhuo then activated his movement skill and flew towards the sea. With his participation, the situation of the battle really changed. With the two Transcendents joining forces and the other Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters assisting them, they quickly seized the initiative, causing the sea beast to wail in pain as all 8 of its legs were damaged. Yang Kai stood in place for a while and after determining that there was no problem, he smiled faintly. Then, he smiled and said, These people seem to be very loyal to you. They're all my people. Of course they're loyal to me. Shui Ling said proudly, Do you think this young lady is still the same as when I was in the central capital? I'm warning you, if you dare bully me again, I'll have them cut you into pieces. I haven't bullied you, right? Yang Kai was stunned. Shui Ling snorted, Whether you've bullied me or not, you know in your heart. After not seeing you for a few years, it seems you've grown quite a bit. What's your current cultivation? Yang Kai wrinkled his nose. Why do you want to know this? It wasn't that he wanted to hide anything from Shui Ling's heart. When they first met, Shui Ling was an Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage Master while Yang Kai was just a peak True Element Boundary Cultivator. After a few years, Yang Kai's cultivation had completely surpassed Shui Ling's. Was simply too fast. Of you is something IM's right. User persons, no matter where you, ISSSTA, to be SSS, I. A U, to say, to be a SSSTTS a one to be expected. STTTT. After leaving the Water God Temple. You can't do anything. You're a girl, why do you need such a high cultivation? I won't talk to you about that. How about it? After seeing the riches of my Water Spirit Temple, do you want to join us? My offer is still the same, as long as you join, I can provide you with the best cultivation environment. Right, I have a lot of islands under my control, as long as you take a fancy to them, you can pick one and from now on, that island will be yours. 3 years ago, Shui Ling had tried to win over Yang Kai, and now that they had met, she still had the same idea. Because there had never been a person who could make Shui Ling's eyes light up. Only Yang Kai had done it. Although this person was hateful, his ability and aptitude were unquestionable. If I join here, it'll be the same as ruining myself. Yang Kai smiled and declined Shui Ling's offer. The water attribute energy here is so rich, how do you want me to cultivate? Of course my Water Spirit Temple has a suitable place for you to cultivate. There are several volcanic islands nearby, the climate is quite hot. No, I already have a place to settle down. What place? Shui Ling suddenly became interested, it actually caught your eye. Yang Kai briefly explained what had happened in Soaring Heaven sect to Shui Ling. Hearing that the ancestral founder was the one who had founded High Heaven Pavilion, Shui Ling suddenly felt relieved. High Heaven Pavilion was Yang Kai's sect, so it was reasonable for him to choose Soaring Heaven sect. On top of that, Soaring Heaven sect was one of the great forces in Tongxian realm, even Shui Ling had occasionally heard of it. While they were talking, the battle over there was already over. After Liu Zhuo joined the battle, the sea beast was no match for him and managed to escape with heavy injuries. Although it was a pity that they weren't able to kill it, it was still good news that they hadn't suffered any losses. Shui Ling ordered her subordinates to deal with the situation on their own before leading Yang Kai off in a certain direction. Water Spirit Island was one of the larger islands in the sea region, and it had dense spirit chi. It was one of the islands under the Water Spirit's name, and the name of the island came from the Water Spirit. Usually, Shui Ling lived and cultivated on this island. Most of the residents on this island were disciples of Water Spirit Temple as well as the families of those disciples. On the island, a number of houses were arranged in picturesque disorder with crowds of people coming and going, making it quite lively. At the highest point of the island, there was a row of palace-like buildings, Shui Ling's palace. Leading Yang Kai to this place, a young and beautiful maidservant immediately greeted him, offering him fine wine and delicacies, as well as various exotic delicacies, all of them enthusiastically entertaining Yang Kai. Yang Kai had something on his mind, so even though he ate and drank, he didn't feel like eating or drinking. Shui Ling seemed to have noticed this as well, so after dismissing the servants, she said, "I know why you're here, and I can tell you that I have the information you want." Yang Kai's breathing quickened slightly as he stared at Shui Ling. "Meng Wu Wei really came here and left you a message. Ian, 2 years ago, he suddenly came to Water Spirit Temple with your little senior sister who was proficient in alchemy. After leaving behind a few words, he hurriedly left and told me to pass on his message to you when I saw you. I originally wanted to go to Bold Independent Union to look for you, but when I arrived, I heard from Yun Xian that you were probably already dead." Shui Ling sighed faintly. "Fortunately, you're safe. The heavens help the worthy. What did Treasurer Meng want you to pass on to me?" Yang Kai asked eagerly. He said, "After that old demon arrived here, he separated from them and said he wanted to go to the demon land to develop his forces there while waiting for young master's arrival." Shui Ling smiled. "That old bastard." Yang Kai also shook his head and smiled bitterly, but the old demon's ambitions really did have a chance of being realized. He was different from ordinary people. Possessing the body of a demon general was his greatest asset. If he used it well, he would definitely be able to progress smoothly in the demon race. "What about Su Yang? Where is Su Yang?" Shui Ling glanced over at him and said, "Can I not tell you where she is? But I can tell you that she's fine. Senior Meng and your little senior sister seem to have an important matter to attend to, so Senior Meng entrusted Su Yang to an old friend of his, allowing her to temporarily cultivate there. The location of that force is very suitable for Su Yang. Not only is she not in any danger, but she will also be able to benefit immensely. Then why don't you tell her where she is?" Yang Kai was stunned. "Because if I told you, you would definitely go find her. That force is not a place anyone can casually join. The people there are somewhat unreasonable and their influence is much larger than my Water Spirit temples. There are countless masters in that sect, and with your temper, if you don't see Su Yang, who knows what kind of trouble you'll cause. At that time, I'm afraid you won't be able to return." "Really? I'm just going to see my senior sister. Why would they make things difficult for me? I already said that the people there are somewhat unreasonable and can't be measured by common sense." Yang Kai's brow furrowed as he pondered, whispering softly, "Treasurer Meng entrusted Su Yang to that force before coming to Water Spirit Temple to leave a message for you, so that force is very likely to be near your Water Spirit Temple. As for my senior sister Su Yang, she cultivates the Ice Heart secret art, so the only suitable environment for her would be an extremely cold zone. There is a sect in the extremely cold zone near your Water Spirit Temple that is even stronger than your Water Spirit Temple." "Enough, enough." Shui Ling was speechless. With just a few words, Yang Kai had almost deduced Su Yang's location, so she knew that even if she tried to hide it, it would be useless, so she could only glare at him hatefully. "You're so smart. Then just tell me, so that I won't have to think about it for a long time and still have to find someone to ask around." Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. He didn't know much about this world's great forces, otherwise, he would have already guessed. "Ice sect," Shui Ling said helplessly. "Have you heard of it?" Yang Kai shook his head. "About a few thousand kilometers to the west of my Water Spirit Temple, there is a world of glacier. Ice sect is located in that world of ice. They have very little contact with outsiders and almost live an isolated life. That's why I said they were unapproachable. The closest place to them is my Water Spirit Temple, and because of this, I have some understanding of them. Occasionally, my Water Spirit Temple will have some business dealings with them, but every one of them, whether male or female, old or young, is as cold as ice. Your Ice Doll senior sister really found a suitable place to enter. Why would Treasurer Meng take senior sister to such a place?" Yang Kai frowned. It seems that because Senior Meng has some friendship with Ice Sect master, He felt relieved to entrust Su Yang to her. After Shui Ling finished speaking, she turned to Yang Kai and asked, "You're going to Ice Sect, right?" Yang Kai nodded. He had been searching here for several years now, and now that he finally had some definite news, of course he wanted to see how Su Yang was doing. If Ice Sect was really suitable for her, it wouldn't hurt to let her stay there and cultivate, but if she wanted to go with him, Yang Kai would take her to Soaring Heaven Sect. Chu Ling Xiao was High Heaven Pavilion's ancestral founder, so naturally he was Su Yang's ancestral founder. "When are you leaving?" "We're leaving now. Do you know where it is?" Shui Ling rolled her eyes. "Wait a few days, I'll find you someone familiar with the route so you don't have to waste time blindly looking for it." "Good." Yang Kai nodded, not refusing Shui Ling's kindness. Having someone to lead the way was naturally better than wandering around by himself. Chapter 728. Above the endless sea, a huge iron ship sailed through the wind and waves at an extremely fast speed towards the west. This ship was full of cultivation materials and the crew were all Water Spirit Temple disciples. Yang Kai stood at the bow of the ship, gazing towards the west, his thoughts wandering. Ever since he had dual cultivated with Su Yang, the two of them had never been separated for such a long time. The deep yearning in his heart was like an aged wine. The more it was stored, the more fragrant it would become. After staying on Water Spirit Island for about half a month, Yang Kai decided to take advantage of the trade between Water Spirit Temple and Ice Sect to come to this island. During this half-month, Shui Ling had taken good care of Yang Kai, enjoying all kinds of conveniences while constantly persuading Yang Kai to join Water Spirit Temple. Unfortunately, even until the end, Yang Kai refused to budge. When he left, Shui Ling was still sulking and didn't even appear to say goodbye to Yang Kai. Taking advantage of this half-month, Yang Kai also used Shui Ling to find the herbs needed to refine the Saint Pill. There was no such herb in Water Blue City, but for Water Spirit Temple, it wasn't too difficult to find it. Although the speed of the ship's navigation wasn't as fast as Yang Kai's flight, it was definitely not slow. Moreover, this iron ship seemed to have been refined using some kind of secret technique as there were traces of artifacts on it, so even if it was attacked by a monster beast in the middle of the sea, it wouldn't be destroyed so easily. The ship was also equipped with several Transcendent Realm Masters to guard it in case of any accidents. Pu of Dark Clouds Island had also come this time and was mainly responsible for the trade with Ice Sect. Although Ice Sect was powerful, had many masters, and was known for its ruthlessness, because of this, it was very honest when it came to trading. Water Spirit Temple and Ice Sect had been cooperating for more than a year and both sides trusted each other. When the time came, as long as they brought the goods, they could exchange them for a large number of ice attribute spirit grasses and spirit medicines. On top of that, Ice Sect was rich in ice attribute ores, which were also good things Water Spirit Temple needed. Young Master Yang. Pu appeared beside Yang Kai with a flattering smile on his face. In another half a month, we should be able to reach that glacier. After that, we'll have to disembark and fly over. The person you're looking for is in that world of ice. Ice Sect, what kind of sect is it? Yang Kai turned to look at him. I'm not too sure either. Pu smiled awkwardly. You don't know either? Don't you often trade with them? We do have some dealings, but I've never been to Ice Sect. Every time we trade, it's always been on a glacier, some distance away from Ice Sect. Those from Ice Sect. It was one thing for them to be unreasonable, but every time they put on a sour face, as if we owed them money. On top of that, they were quite wary of outsiders, believing that Ice Sect was a pure land and that outsiders would only bring filth to that pure world. They won't be polite. So you don't know where Ice Sect is? Yang Kai frowned. Pu shook his head and lightly coughed. Young lady has instructed that if things do not go well this time, young Master Yang should return to Water Spirit Island. Young lady will be waiting for you there. Yang Kai couldn't help laughing. That little girl, she even has ideas about me. Pu's mouth twitched. He had never heard anyone call the young lady a little girl before. This young Master Yang's tone wasn't ordinary. Moreover, his relationship with the young lady was also unusual. The wind is strong outside, let's go in, Pu said with a smile. My brothers have prepared some food and drink and would like to invite young Master Yang to join us. Good, Yang Kai nodded and followed He Pu into the cabin. Although He Pu and the others didn't know what the relationship between Yang Kai and Shui Ling was, they could still guess. Shui Ling treated Yang Kai differently than others, so naturally she wanted to establish a friendship with him. Yang Kai also took this opportunity to make the most of it, quickly becoming one with the crew, exchanging toasts and toasting each other, creating a harmonious atmosphere. As the days passed, the air became noticeably colder, as the iron ship sailed forward, they gradually arrived at a world of ice. The waves on the sea were also much weaker than before, and the ship was surrounded by a thin layer of ice. As time passed, this situation became more and more serious. Yang Kai knew that they were getting closer and closer to the world of ice, his heart filled with infinite expectation and excitement. Half a month later, the ship came to a stop. The sea in front of them was completely frozen, snow falling like goose feathers, and the ice on the sea was several meters thick. The ship could no longer move forward. He Pu skillfully directed the crew to pack the ship's supplies into universe bags and prepare to board the glacier. After a short period of work, everything was ready. Leaving behind a few people to look after the iron ship, the rest of the crew jumped off and braved the biting cold, heading west. The temperature here was extremely low, even a cultivator like He Pu wore a lot of winter clothing. Yang Kai, on the other hand, was wearing thin clothes, but not only did he not feel cold, his face was rosy, causing He Pu and the others to be amazed. They couldn't help wondering what kind of cultivation Yang Kai had, but in this harsh environment, he was actually completely fine. What entered their eyes was a snow-white world, seemingly without any impurities, as pure as a newborn's eyes. The group of several people flew forward at full speed for several days before the transcendent in the lead suddenly made a hand gesture. Everyone stopped and squinted their eyes towards the front. In this world of falling snow, there seemed to be several figures in front of them, all of them wearing snow-white robes, but against this pure background, they were impossible to detect. Yang Kai actually felt the life auras of these people, but he didn't point it out. After observing for a while, the transcendent in the lead finally confirmed it was them, a look of joy appearing on his face as he hurriedly flew forward. A moment later, they finally arrived at the location of these people. These people should be the disciples of Ice Sect. Yang Kai swept his eyes over them and couldn't help feeling a chill run down his spine. Although these people didn't smile, their expressions were indifferent, and they were indeed a bit unreasonable, but no matter how high or low their cultivation was, their true essence was extremely pure. From head to toe, they exuded a chilling aura that penetrated the heart. The harsher the environment, the more powerful the cultivator would be, this was a well-known fact. Living an isolated life in this world of ice, it was difficult for Ice Sect's disciples not to be strong. It seemed that Treasurer Meng had spent a great deal of effort in entrusting Su Yang to this place. With Su Yang's temperament, this place was indeed very suitable for her. Both sides were familiar with each other, but even so, when the Ice Sect leader saw the people from Water Spirit Temple, he still showed some impatience on his face and asked indifferently, "How come you're so late this time?" He Pu quickly smiled, sorry, some matters delayed our trip, sorry to keep you waiting." "It's best if there isn't a next time," the man coldly snorted. He Pu was almost choked speechless, rolling his eyes and not saying anything else, quickly gathering the universe bags so the people from Ice Sect could confirm the goods. After a short while, the Ice Sect leader nodded faintly, expressing his satisfaction with the materials sent by Water Spirit Temple this time, taking out 2 more universe bags from his sleeve and handing them to He Pu. After checking them, He Pu smiled and said, "Good, this time the handover went smoothly, it was a pleasure to cooperate." The people from Ice Sect turned around and left, not even exchanging a single word of courtesy. "Everyone, please wait," He Pu hurriedly called out. The leader of the group turned around and asked unhappily, "What else do you want?" "It's like this, I want to inquire about a certain person from you." Yang Kai stepped forward and cupped his fists. "Inquire about a person? Who are you inquiring about?" The leader frowned, his expression quite impatient. "A woman named Su Yang, she should be in your Ice Sect." "Su Yang?" Ian, she entered your ice sect 2 years ago. If possible, I hope to see her. Ice sect doesn't have such a person. You've come to the wrong place. The leader didn't wait for Yang Kai to finish speaking, waving his hand and interrupting him before turning around and leaving. Yang Kai was slightly angry, but he didn't act on the spot, instead just coldly staring at the departing backs of this group of people. Soon, these people disappeared into the snow and wind. Young Master Yang, this. Pu looked at Yang Kai with some sympathy. Although he had long known that people from Ice Sect weren't easy to get along with, this group of people was simply too indifferent, not even giving him a chance to speak. You go back first. Tell Shui Ling that this time I must thank her. If there is an opportunity in the future, I will personally thank her in person. But young lady said that if things didn't go well, we had to bring you back no matter what, lest you be bullied here. Pu frowned. I appreciate her kindness. Go back and tell her that it was I who insisted on staying. Yang Kai chuckled and patted Pu on the shoulder. Thank you for your hard work this time. Pu was flattered and quickly smiled. Young Master Yang is too polite. This he wishes young Master Yang success. If things don't go well, please leave as soon as possible. These people from Ice Sect are not easy to provoke. I know. Everyone, we'll meet again someday. Yang Kai cupped his fists before chasing after the Ice Sect disciples and quickly leaving. Looking at his disappearing back, Pu sighed and could only lead the others back the way they had come. Yang Kai released his divine sense subtly and locked onto the group of Ice Sect disciples, tracking them as they left. He was certain that this group of people knew Su Yang. Although the person who had spoken had kept his mouth shut, when the young woman next to him heard Yang Kai mention Su Yang's name, her beautiful eyes flashed and a look of surprise appeared on her face. Although she quickly restrained herself, Yang Kai still saw this. Yang Kai didn't know why they were denying Su Yang's existence, but if he didn't meet her personally, he couldn't feel at ease. A faint uneasiness lingered in his heart, as if something bad was about to happen. It stood to reason that Su Yang was entrusted to Ice Sect by Meng Wu Ya, and Treasurer Meng and Ice Sect Master had some friendship, a very good one at that. If not for this, Meng Wu Ya wouldn't have done this. Yang Kai believed in Treasurer Meng. Since that was the case, Su Yang wouldn't be wronged in Ice Sect, but this faint uneasiness made Yang Kai vigilant, vowing to find Su Yang and see how she was doing. Chapter 729. Atop the glacier, a few Ice Sect disciples wearing white robes were running, the group who had made a deal with Pu and the others. This group of people, under the leadership of a middle-aged man, swayed left and right in an erratic manner. There were many large and small icebergs atop the glacier, and these people all wore white robes. Their method of concealing their auras was quite exquisite, so if one didn't carefully investigate, it would be impossible to detect them. The middle-aged man leading this group of disciples frowned as he led them forward, feeling like they were being followed, but when he released his divine sense to investigate, he found nothing, causing him to feel somewhat restless. After running for half a day, not only were they not approaching Ice Sect, they were actually getting farther and farther away from it. A young woman next to him finally couldn't help asking, "Martial Uncle Ni Ren, why are we running in this direction?" The middle-aged man didn't answer, as if he hadn't heard her. The young woman pouted and asked again, "Also, that person just now said he was looking for junior sister Su Yang. Why did you tell junior sister she wasn't in Ice Sect?" "She was obviously here. I saw her a year ago." Only then did Ni Ren look at the woman coldly. Being stared at like this, the woman immediately became terrified and quickly shut her mouth. A young man next to the young woman comforted her, "Junior sister, don't ask. Martial Uncle naturally has his reasons for doing this, it's all for our own good." Outside, people's hearts are sinister. That guy looks like a rat. At first glance it's obvious he's not a good person. Coming to our Ice Sect to look for someone, I don't know what kind of intentions he has. Ian, the young woman nodded. Although she didn't agree with Martial Uncle Ni Ren in her heart, she didn't dare ask any more questions. Another disciple who looked somewhat steady picked up his pace and approached Ni Ren, asking softly, "Martial Uncle, are we being followed?" Ni Ren frowned and said lightly, "I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination. Among that group of people, there shouldn't be anyone who has the strength to follow me without being detected. To be on the safe side, let's take a detour." Yes. Ni Ren's brow wrinkled as he recalled Yang Kai's appearance, shaking his head, wondering if he had been a bit too cautious. Although that young man had an extraordinary temperament and wasn't a mediocre member of the younger generation, in the end, with his age, his cultivation shouldn't be too high. However, what Ni Ren cared about was that the person he was looking for was actually Su Yang. The woman who had inexplicably entered Ice Sect 2 years ago. Not long after joining the sect, this woman had already blossomed into a dazzling radiance. Even the sect master and several elders had said that she would one day reach the peak of the Third Order Saint realm. On top of that, her performance was truly amazing. When she first joined the sect, she was only an Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage cultivator, but in less than a year, she had successfully broken through to the Transcendent realm, her cultivation advancing by leaps and bounds. According to Elder Qian Yu, over the past year, this woman named Su Yang had been in retreat inside the Ice Snow Cave, so no one knew what her current cultivation was. Ice Sect's secret scriptures and various secret skills, she had only needed a single glance to become proficient in them. This was something no one in Ice Sect's history had ever been able to accomplish. Her aptitude was not far from the legendary special physique, the Ice Crystal Body. Unfortunately, the Ice Crystal Body was too rare. No one had ever found anyone with such a special physique. Ni Ren had only been in contact with Su Yang a few times, but he had learned from Elder Qian Yu that a woman like Su Yang was the best talent to cultivate Ice Sect's secret skills. Originally, it was the sect master who had reluctantly accepted her into the sect, but after discovering her amazing talent, Elder Qian Yu had the idea of accepting her as a disciple. Not only had she opened her secret scriptures and martial skills to her, she had even allowed her to freely enter the Ice Snow Cave. Unfortunately, this girl didn't seem to be very willing to join Ice Sect, causing Elder Qian Yu to both hate and love her. As soon as Yang Kai mentioned Su Yang, Ni Ren became vigilant. If it were any other disciple, Ni Ren probably wouldn't have tried to conceal this matter, but since it was related to Su Yang, Ni Ren felt that he should first report this matter to Elder Qian Yu and see what she thought. Thinking so, Ni Ren continued to shuffle through the world of glacier and ice mountains. Yang Kai, who was following in the distance, narrowed his eyes slightly as a sneer appeared on his face. The other party seemed to be aware that he was following them, but couldn't be sure, so he was circling around in an attempt to throw him off. However, under Yang Kai's powerful divine sense, all of Ni Ren's efforts were in vain. 3 days later, Yang Kai noticed that the group of people had suddenly disappeared into an ice mountain, their life auras strangely disappearing without a trace. After waiting for a moment, Yang Kai frowned and walked over to the ice mountain territory. After carefully investigating for a long time, Yang Kai didn't gain anything, only able to determine that there was some kind of mystery hidden inside these ice mountains. However, what excited him though was that he felt Su Yang's aura. Because he cultivated the yin-yang joyous unification art, as long as both parties were within a certain range, they could sense each other's existence. Moreover, the yin-yang monster ginseng's energy flowed through each other's bodies, greatly enhancing this invisible spiritual connection. Su Yang wasn't far from him, somewhere inside this ice mountain. Her aura was even, seemingly having fallen into a deep sleep. No matter how Yang Kai tried to communicate with her with his divine sense, he couldn't get the slightest response from her. Yang Kai's face instantly became gloomy. Su Yang must have had some kind of accident. Otherwise, if she had noticed his arrival, she would definitely have run out excitedly. In an instant, Yang Kai's anger surged as murderous intent filled his eyes, his gaze becoming even more hostile. Inside these ice mountains, everything was crystal clear. The foundation of Ice Sect was located in this stretch of ice mountains. Many years ago, Ice Sect was one of the largest great forces in Tongxian realm, but because of an accident, Ice Sect was forced to relocate and live in seclusion here, no longer contacting the outside world or accepting outsiders. Every 10 years or so, the elders of Ice Sect would go out to find some disciples with excellent aptitude and bring them back to supplement Ice Sect's fresh blood. These people were all orphans who had no father or mother and were now wandering the outside world. The stringent selection of disciples allowed every disciple of Ice Sect to have the qualifications and strength to be proud of. Ice Sect didn't have many people, from the sect master down to only a little more than 500, but there were many masters, several Saint Realm masters, and 20 to 30 transcendents. It was clear from this that Ice Sect's talent and vision for finding new disciples was extraordinary. At this moment, in the center of an ice mountain, inside an ice room, Ni Ren was reporting to Elder Qian Yu about this transaction. Qian Yu was a beautiful middle-aged woman, and although she didn't look very old, she was actually a first-order saint. Like Fei Yu, she was skilled in retaining her youthful appearance. After listening to Ni Ren's report, Qian Yu nodded lightly. "You've done well, thank you for your hard work. Take those disciples to collect some materials and cultivate." "Many thanks, Elder Qian," Ni Ren said respectfully, but didn't immediately withdraw, seemingly wanting to say something but hesitating. "Is there something else?" Qian Yu's pair of beautiful eyes swept over him, keenly aware of something, and asked lightly. "It's like this, Elder Qian, during this transaction, something happened that caught Disciple's attention." "Tell me about it." "There was a young man who asked Disciple about Su Yang's whereabouts. I don't know where he obtained this information, but apparently he knew Su Yang was in our ice sec. He was looking for Su Yang?" Qian Yu's pretty face froze, her brow furrowing slightly. What kind of man was he? Ni Ren quickly described Yang Kai's appearance, adding, "He wasn't very old, but there was something strange about him. Disciple was incompetent and wasn't able to see through his strength, but he gave me a feeling of oppression." "He oppressed you?" Qian Yu looked surprised, thinking about it for a moment before muttering, "Could it be the person that old man mentioned to Sect Master before? How did he find her so quickly? When that old man brought Su Yang to Ice Sect and handed her over to the Sect Master, he had said that one day a young man would come looking for Su Yang. At that time, he had asked the Sect Master to let him go, otherwise, it was very likely he would cause great trouble. The Sect Master and Qian Yu hadn't known Su Yang's aptitude was so outstanding at that time, so naturally, they had agreed without hesitation, but now, after witnessing Su Yang's intelligence, Qian Yu really didn't want her to leave. As long as she remained in Ice Sect, with her talent, she would definitely inherit the position of Sect Master and become a powerful leader. What made Qian Yu feel most helpless was that Su Yang was currently in a difficult situation, so it wasn't time for her to see anyone. The relationship between that young man and Su Yang was definitely very close. If he were to see Su Yang's current state, there was no telling what kind of trouble would ensue. Qian Yu couldn't help rubbing her forehead, feeling a headache coming on, asking, "Did that young man come to Ice Sect?" "No." Ni Ren shook his head. Disciple felt that this matter should be reported to Elder Qian first, so he didn't tell him the truth. "Good, you did well," Qian Yu nodded with satisfaction. Just as she was about to offer a few words of praise though, her expression suddenly changed and she released her divine sense to investigate, coldly snorting, "Ni Ren, Ni Ren, you really are incompetent. That young man followed you to our Ice Sect, yet you didn't even notice." Ni Ren was shocked. "That's impossible. I deliberately circled around outside for several days to determine there was no problem before returning. How could he, for me?" Qian Yu coldly snorted, "I said he came, so he naturally came. Moreover, this little brat seems to be very dissatisfied with our Ice Sect. His aura is somewhat violent at the moment. Elder, please calm your anger, Disciple will drive him away," Ni Ren quickly said, a trace of annoyance appearing on his face. When he returned, he had been vigilant enough, but he had still been chased all the way to his doorstep, causing him to lose a great deal of face. "Go, bring more people with you. This little brat isn't easy to deal with, just teach him a lesson, don't take his life," Qian Yu ordered. After all, this young man had some kind of relationship with that old dog. If she really killed him, it would be difficult to explain to that old dog and the Sect Master. Because of Su Yang's accident, the Sect Master had already reprimanded her once. Qian Yu didn't want to be reprimanded again. Ni Ren quickly complied, bowing and retreating, his expression extremely cold. Chapter 730. Outside the ice mountain, Yang Kai's expression was also quite ugly, closing his eyes and probing his surroundings. From Su Yang's aura, he could infer that her life wasn't in danger, but for some reason, she didn't respond to his divine sense call, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. Several powerful life auras suddenly appeared in Yang Kai's perception and flew towards him at a rapid speed. Yang Kai opened his eyes, a cold light flashing across his pupils as he stared at the several ice sect disciples who had suddenly appeared. A moment later, these people arrived in front of Yang Kai one after another. "Sure enough, it's you, brat," Ni Ren shouted as he saw the gloomy expression on this little brat's face and thick murderous intent. At a glance, it was obvious he wasn't a good person. Towards this kind of person, Ni Ren didn't have the slightest goodwill. "You dare follow me? Your courage isn't small." Ni Ren coldly snorted, saying in a displeased tone, "I'm going to ask Water Spirit Temple about this." Is Water Spirit Temple the kind of place that cultivates such insidious villains? He had seen Yang Kai act together with Water Spirit Temple's disciples before and thought Yang Kai was from Water Spirit Temple. "Water Spirit Temple doesn't care about me," Yang Kai snorted heavily. Ni Ren frowned as he glanced over at Yang Kai, calmly saying, "I don't care which force you're from, this place belongs to my ice sect. Go back where you came from, otherwise don't blame us for being impolite. Before I see the person I want to see, I don't want to go anywhere." Yang Kai glared at Ni Ren, feeling a bit annoyed. This guy clearly knew about Su Yang, but before this, he hadn't even given him a chance to ask questions. Now that he had found this place, this guy actually wanted to drive him away. His attitude was arrogant to the extreme. Yang Kai was furious in his heart, but he still endured. After all, Ice Sect Master had some kind of relationship with Meng Wu Ya, and Meng Wu Ya entrusting Su Yang to him was obviously out of good intentions. If Ice Sect could give him a reasonable and acceptable explanation, Yang Kai didn't want to make things worse. Right now, he just wanted to know how Su Yang was doing. Yang Kai didn't get angry, but Ni Ren did and shouted, "Little brat, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. In my Ice Sect's territory, you're the first one to dare speak to me like this. If you dare provoke me again, I'll teach you a lesson." "You can try," Yang Kai sneered. Ni Ren nodded slightly. "I didn't want to hurt you, but you asked for it. A junior dares to be so presumptuous in front of me, you simply don't know your place. Today, I will let you know who is the master here." As he said this, Ni Ren's eyes suddenly lit up. A pure white light suddenly burst out from his eyes. In this pure white world, it was extremely difficult to detect such a light. The light mixed with the cold aura was like a sharp sword, piercing into Yang Kai's head and tearing apart the defense of Yang Kai's sea of consciousness. It seemed to want to destroy him in one blow. A divine sense attack. Yang Kai's mouth curled into a cold smile as he slowly shook his head. "I thought Ice Sect's people were more powerful, but it turns out you're just SOSO. If this is all you've got, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed." Although Ni Ren's divine sense attack easily pierced into Yang Kai's sea of consciousness, it was quickly incinerated by the scorching waves. Ni Ren's complexion changed, and the other Ice Sect disciples around him also stared at Yang Kai in amazement. Ni Ren was a first-order transcendent master, and although he didn't cultivate his spiritual energy, his soul was still relatively powerful. Dealing with such a junior, not only was he not injured in the slightest, he was even able to leisurely speak, a result that was difficult for all of them to accept. "Junior brother, this little brat is a bit strange." Beside Ni Ren, another transcendent quickly said. Ni Ren nodded solemnly. Just now, when Elder Qian Yu had asked him to bring more people to drive this little brat away, Ni Ren felt like she was making a mountain out of a molehill, but now that he thought about it, it was fortunate that he had found his other brothers to help him, otherwise, if he had come out alone, he would have suffered a big loss. Thinking so, Ni Ren stared at Yang Kai with a dignified expression and quickly said, "Boy, it seems you have some skill, I won't embarrass you, you can leave now." I said, "Before I see the person I want to see, I won't leave." Yang Kai slowly shook his head, his attitude firm, his expression becoming cold as he declared, "If you don't let me see her, I'll flatten your 3,000 ice mountain whirl." Arrogant. Ice Sect is not a place you can act so atrociously. Ni Ren roared. "It seems that talking to you is useless, your status in Ice Sect isn't high. Since that's the case, I'll go find someone I can talk to." As soon as Yang Kai's voice fell, his figure leapt up and flew straight towards one of the ice mountains. From this ice mountain, Ni Ren could vaguely sense a tyrannical divine sense, as if someone was spying on him. Wishful thinking. Ni Ren shouted angrily, his yuan qi bursting out, ice seal world. The biting cold wind became even colder at this moment, and an inexplicable energy suddenly appeared around Yang Kai's body, surrounding him. From this energy, icicles quickly formed and shot towards him from all directions, each icicle as sharp as a knife and filled with an imposing aura. In an instant, he was submerged in this ice mountain. Ni Ren's expression, however, did not relax and instead became even more solemn. ************** Icicles continued to shoot out, but at the center of the ice attribute energy, a blazing flame erupted, spreading at an unimaginable speed. Soon, the red flame became as dazzling as the sun. ********** The ice seal world collapsed and Yang Kai stood mid-air, his body covered in a fiery red light and exuding a scorching aura, staring down at Ni Ren indifferently. Transcendent realm. Ni Ren's complexion changed greatly as his eyes lost focus. Feeling the fluctuations of Yang Kai's yuan qi, Ni Ren immediately understood what the other party's cultivation was. This young man, just like him, was actually a first-order transcendent master. On top of that, this young man's yuan qi was several times more powerful than his own. What made Ni Ren even more uneasy was that this young man's yuan qi attribute was the opposite of his own yuan qi attribute. Junior brother, be careful. While Ni Ren was in a daze, his brother beside him suddenly shouted and hurriedly pulled him back. ******, a fiery red spear brushed past Ni Ren's body and pierced into the ground, creating a giant hole a few thousand meters deep in the ice seal world. Feeling the power of this spear that was purely condensed from Jin Yuan, everyone's face paled. All of them were transcendent realm masters, but none of them had the confidence to resist such an attack with their bodies. If they were struck, they would likely die instantly. ******, an unbearably hot yuan qi aura spread out, covering a radius of several thousand meters. Within this range, everyone's ice attribute secret arts were suppressed to varying degrees and the flow of yuan qi within their bodies seemed to slow down significantly. Yang Kai stepped out of the void, a cold light flashing across his eyes as he faintly asked, "I'll ask you one last time, what happened to Su Yang?" "Little brat, if you want to fight then fight, we don't know who Su Yang is." Ni Ren braced himself and shouted. "Good." Yang Kai nodded lightly, no longer speaking. A drop of yang liquid seeped out from his fingertip and flew out with a flick of his finger. This drop of yang liquid flew through the air and suddenly turned into thousands of tiny droplets that shot towards Ni Ren's group. Ice Curtain, Ice Lock, Ice Crystal Beast. Ni Ren and the other Transcendent Realm Masters all attacked at the same time, all kinds of ice attribute martial skills blossoming. A barrier filled with ice energy suddenly rose up in front of them and at the same time, a white energy chain shot towards Yang Kai. Accompanied by the roar of a monster beast, a giant, ferocious battle beast suddenly appeared above the glacier. These battle beasts were all composed of pure energy and looked like carefully carved ice sculptures, lifelike and lifelike. Some ran on the ground, some flew in the sky, all of them fiercely attacking Yang Kai. *********, the 10 million droplets of yang liquid effortlessly pierced through the ice barrier, causing Ni Ren and the other Transcendent Realm Masters' faces to go pale as they summoned their own defensive artifacts to block in front of them. The ice lock that had suddenly appeared directly bound Yang Kai, but before the ice lock master could rejoice, he was shocked to discover that this martial skill, which was powerful enough to bind any first or second order transcendent, was directly melted by Yang Kai's true Yang Yuan Qi. It didn't even have the slightest effect on him, not even slowing him down. Yang Kai quickly rushed forward to meet the ice crystal beasts head-on. The beast soul seal that had not been used for a long time was once again used, the heaven-shaking white tiger and earth-splitting divine ox both appearing, their golden bodies burning like suns as they followed closely behind Yang Kai. All the ice crystal beasts that rushed forward were no match for Yang Kai and these two beast phantoms, all of them shattering and disappearing one after another. In the blink of an eye, Yang Kai had already rushed in front of these people, his surging true qi and overwhelming momentum causing their hearts to tremble. They had never thought that among cultivators in the same realm, there would actually be someone who could single-handedly fight against all of them. Not only did he not show any signs of being defeated, he even seemed to be able to fight back with ease. Feeling the power surging through his body, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling refreshed. The combat power of these people from Ice Sect was far greater than any cultivator in the outside world. The two first-order transcendents from the Cheng family that he had dealt with in Blue Water City were on a completely different level from these people. Although their cultivations were the same, their understanding of the heavenly way and martial Dao was different, so the combat power they could transform into was naturally different. In this regard, Yang Kai had reached the pinnacle. These people from Ice Sect were also doing a good job, but they were nowhere near as profound as Yang Kai's. Striking out one deadly blow after another, Yang Kai's anger seemed to be released along with these attacks, his mind gradually calming down. He had not come to Ice Sect to fight, nor to kill, he had come to find Su Yang. Thinking so, Yang Kai restrained his murderous intent, but showed no mercy. Ni Ren and the others tried their best, but not only were they unable to stop Yang Kai, they were also forced to retreat, showing signs of exhaustion. This scene caused them to feel fear in their hearts, and their attitude towards Yang Kai also quietly changed. Chapter 731. Outside the Ice Mountain, the several Transcendent Realm Masters from Ice Sect had joined forces to resist Yang Kai. All of them had thought that Yang Kai was just a young boy and that any one of their brothers would be able to easily defeat him, but Ni Ren and the others hadn't expected that Yang Kai's strength would be so outstanding. As soon as he took action, he was able to overwhelm all of them. Such a huge contrast made all of them jump in fright. Although everyone's Yuan Qi attributes were mutually exclusive, in comparison, it was undoubtedly the other party's Yuan Qi that was purer and denser. When their Yuan Qi collided, the martial skills they displayed were like snow under the scorching sun, melting away before they could even touch the other party's body. Today, whoever dares to stop me will die. While attacking, Yang Kai suddenly showed an impatient expression and shouted coldly, a cold light flashing across his eyes. Ni Ren's heart trembled and he suddenly felt uneasy, subconsciously wanting to retreat and assume a defensive posture. Under the threat of Yang Kai's murderous intent, Ni Ren finally felt a sense of foreboding. Yang Kai's performance was completely beyond his expectations. He had never imagined that this young man could rely on his own strength to completely suppress his brothers. This is my Ice Sect, it's not your place to act presumptuously. Ni Ren clenched his teeth and roared. You just said the same thing, Yang Kai glared at him coldly, so what if you're from Ice Sect? I'll show you how presumptuous I am. As soon as these words fell, the wind and thunder began to rumble as a killing field formed around Ni Ren and the others. Wind blades were everywhere, and lightning bolts quickly wrapped around them. The wind and thunder forces wreaked havoc in this killing field, causing the defensive artifacts in the hands of these people to flicker and lose their auras. In just a moment, they had lost their effectiveness. The ice attribute Yuan Qi that had been protecting them was also unable to resist the erosion of the wind and thunder forces, ripping apart their clothes as numerous wounds appeared on their bodies. Feeling the aura of death approaching them, Ni Ren and the others all went pale. They couldn't even escape after being imprisoned by the killing field. Yang Kai slowly extended a hand and slammed it down in their direction. Suddenly, a huge golden palm print appeared in the sky. It was as if the sun had fallen, bringing with it a scorching destructive energy. It was as if a mountain had collapsed. Before the palm print arrived, the world of ice had already started to melt. Waves of mist rose into the air. Ni Ren and his several brothers all went limp and almost knelt on the ground. Their eyes trembled violently as they stared blankly at the huge palm print that was slapping down from the sky. Stop! A delicate shout entered everyone's ears, and a white figure suddenly flew out from inside the iceberg. In the blink of an eye, it arrived above Ni Ren and the others, and raised a jade palm to meet Yang Kai's attack. The dazzling golden palm print directly collapsed, and Yang Kai staggered back a few steps. His face paled, and some blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. However, Yang Kai was not surprised and instead smiled happily as he stared at the woman who had suddenly appeared. This woman was a beautiful middle-aged woman wearing a white dress. Her figure was full and mature, but her expression was cold as she stared at young Kai with a look of fear and disbelief, as if she couldn't believe that such a young man had so easily defeated Ni Ren and the others. Ni Ren and his brothers were all first-order transcendents, and their strength in Ice Sect wasn't low. Despite outnumbering them, such an outcome was really difficult for her to accept. When had such a powerful young man appeared in Tongshen realm? Finally, someone who can take charge, Yang Kai lightly snorted. Elder Chen Yu, Ni Ren and the others seemed to have seen their savior, their eyes filling with joy as they quickly called out. You can withdraw. Chen Yu waved her hand. Chen Yu waved her hand, and the slaughterhouse of wind and thunder surrounding Ni Ren and the others was broken. Yang Kai's expression became dignified. This woman was a Saint Realm Master, so it wasn't surprising that she had such means. The reason why he had put on such an appearance of wanting to kill Ni Ren and the others and created such a huge commotion was to draw this woman out. This woman was the one who had spied on him from inside one of the ice mountains just now. Ni Ren and the others couldn't take charge of Ice Sect, but this woman probably could. Which force do you belong to? Why are you proficient in 3 different types of energy? Chen Yu's brow furrowed slightly as she stared at Yang Kai solemnly, trying to discern some clues from his clothes but failing to do so. You don't need to worry about that. I only came here to see one person. Yang Kai took a deep breath. I ask your Ice Sect to open its doors. If she's safe, I'll take her away and this matter can be considered over, but if she isn't, your Ice Sect can only wait to pay the price. Arrogant. Chen Yu slowly shook her head, a look of ridicule flashing across her beautiful eyes. Ice Sect has been in seclusion for a long time and doesn't have much of a reputation, but that doesn't mean just anyone can bully it. The person you're looking for isn't here. Go back to wherever you came from, otherwise don't blame me for taking action against you. You don't need to play dumb with me. Su Yang is in your Ice Sect. You and I both know this. Yang Kai's eyes remained indifferent, not wavering in the slightest because of Chen Yu's words. I said, the person you're looking for isn't in Ice Sect. Chen Yu's face became slightly angry, her expression becoming somewhat ugly. Is that so? Yang Kai smiled mockingly. Do you want me to show you where she is? Saying so, he pointed in a certain direction, about 10 kilometers from here, inside one of the ice mountains. The person I'm looking for is currently sleeping. Chen Yu's beautiful face paled as she stared at Yang Kai in amazement. This little brat's words were so accurate that Chen Yu couldn't understand how he knew. Am I right? Yang Kai saw the change in her expression and coldly said, I just want to see her and see what's going on with her. I don't know what you're talking about. Chen Yu's expression turned cold. If you insist on not letting me see her, then I can only force my way in. Yang Kai's expression suddenly became violent as he roared, I hope your Ice Sect can afford the price. If you dare act wildly here, be careful you won't be able to protect your own life. Chen Yu grit her teeth and threatened. Yang Kai gently nodded and no longer spoke, his powerful Yuan Qi suddenly erupting. Hua, his wind and thunder wings unfurled, causing everyone to stare blankly, not understanding whether this was the power of a martial skill or an artifact. In the next moment, Yang Kai disappeared from where he stood. Chen Yu's complexion changed as her tender body flickered and she hurriedly chased after him. Hong, a 1,000-meter-high iceberg suddenly let out a loud bang and, under the force of a tremendous force, broke off at the waist, the upper half of the iceberg shattering into ice shards. Hong Hong Hong, star. A series of loud noises spread throughout the iceberg. Ni Ren and the others were all dumbfounded as they couldn't see Yang Kai's figure at all. After opening his pair of strange wings, this young man's speed seemed to have reached an unimaginable limit. Even if they released their divine senses, they couldn't lock onto him. Yang Kai's figure flickered and one iceberg after another was damaged. He was like a blazing fireball, smashing straight into the iceberg, using his body and Yuan Qi to directly smash a hole in it. In just a few breaths of time, 5,000 or 6,000-meter-high icebergs were destroyed. Many of the Ice Sect disciples who had been cultivating inside these icebergs were caught in the crossfire, cursing as they tried to escape, but just as they were out of danger, their vision went dark and they fainted. Ni Ren and the others were also the same. After observing for a while, they suddenly fell to the ground and fell unconscious. Qian Yu didn't notice this at all. The moment Yang Kai shot out, she immediately chased after him, but even with her first-order Saint Realm cultivation, wanting to catch up to Yang Kai with his wind and thunder wings was somewhat unrealistic. The wind attribute was agile while the thunder attribute was swift. The wind and thunder wings provided Yang Kai with a speed bonus that couldn't be described with words. Above the iceberg world, two figures flashed, one chasing the other running. As they chased, large holes were constantly smashed open in the iceberg, causing it to collapse. From the very beginning, Yang Kai didn't intend to confront a Saint Realm Master head-on. Yang Kai's current strength was indeed extraordinary, and he was able to fight across realms. Dealing with Ni Ren and the others was a piece of cake, but he still had some self-awareness. A Saint Realm Master was not something he could contend with right now. The energy flowing through every Saint Realm Master's body was very different from that of a Transcendent Realm Master. The martial skills and moves they displayed were not something a Transcendent Realm Master could compare to. The Saint Realm was a level above the Transcendent Realm. If one wanted to fight against a Saint Realm Master, they would need to break through to the third-order Transcendent Realm at the very least. Fighting with such a beautiful woman, Yang Kai had no chance of winning, so he could only use this method to force her to submit. He was going to turn this world upside down. Little brat, stop. Qian Yu was furious, but unable to catch up to Yang Kai, she could only shout at him. I said, if I don't see Su Yang, I'll destroy this 3,000 iceberg world. Yang Kai coldly snorted, not only not slowing down, but instead increasing his speed greatly. His powerful physique wrapped in his blazing hot yuan qi slammed straight into the iceberg. Not a single iceberg was able to withstand the force of his crash, and wherever he passed, it was destroyed, leaving behind a mess. Qian Yu's eyes went bloodshot as she watched Ice Sect's 1,000-year-old foundation being destroyed, her heart filled with both pain and anger. Encountering such a stubborn young man who didn't know the meaning of death, she felt she was really unlucky. Chasing after him, Qian Yu suddenly came to a stop, her beautiful eyes flashing a cold light as she stared towards Yang Kai's figure and shouted, "Provoke." The world energy around him suddenly became strange, causing Yang Kai's expression to change greatly, his body coming to a halt as he hurriedly turned around. However, from all directions, the ice attribute energies suddenly shot towards him, leaving him no place to dodge. Facing a Saint Realm Master's heaven-defying methods, Yang Kai didn't even see what was going on before he was struck. Hong hong hong, the ice attribute energies struck Yang Kai, causing him to tumble through the air, blood spraying everywhere as a faint golden light glowed around him. Unable to control his body, Yang Kai plummeted to the ground. Chapter 732. Today, seeing Yang Kai suffer such a heavy blow, Qian Yu's face couldn't help relaxing slightly. This time, she knew she was in the wrong. Denying Su Yang's existence and not allowing Yang Kai to see her was all out of selfishness, so even though Yang Kai had destroyed more than a dozen icebergs, she hadn't killed him. She had only wanted to force him to retreat. Su Yang, it was impossible for her to hand her over so easily. It was not easy for her to encounter such an outstanding person, so Qian Yu wanted to accept him as her disciple. Moreover, Su Yang's current state wasn't good and she couldn't see anyone right now. Injuring him and driving him away was one thing, Qian Yu thought to herself, but before she could fly over to check Yang Kai's condition, her expression changed again. Down below, Yang Kai, who should have been knocked unconscious, once again rushed up with the golden yuan qi wrapped around him. Impossible. Qian Yu's beautiful eyes trembled violently. She was well aware of how much strength she had used just now. A mere first-order transcendent youth shouldn't have been able to withstand it. But now, her opponent only seemed to be slightly injured, and his momentum not only hadn't weakened but had instead become even more violent, as if he wouldn't give up until he razed Ice Sect to the ground. How tough was his physique? How could he withstand such a blow without fainting? Hong hong hong. One iceberg after another continued to collapse as Qian Yu hysterically roared like a madwoman, "Little brat, you're courting death, don't blame me for not showing mercy." Yang Kai laughed wildly, "If you can kill me, then do so. Let's see if I die first or if your Ice Sect's foundation is destroyed. If you won't let me see Su Yang, I'll bury you all with me. Impudence! Chen Yu shouted. Seeing that a tenth of Ice Sect's foundation had really been destroyed, she finally decided to kill this boy. If she didn't kill this little brat now, with his current rate of destruction, it wouldn't even be an hour before Ice Sect had to find another place to relocate. Such a huge commotion naturally alarmed everyone else in Ice Sect. One by one, masters emerged from the various icebergs and gathered together. Chen Yu, what happened? Where did this barbaric brat come from? A middle-aged man with a gloomy expression asked coldly. Big brother, help me catch this little brat first, we'll talk about this later. Chen Yu hurriedly shouted as he chased after Yang Kai. The middle-aged man's brow furrowed. Although he was somewhat reluctant to deal with this young man, seeing him so violently destroy Ice Sect's foundation, the middle-aged man couldn't help feeling angry, nodding in agreement. Good. As he spoke, his figure flashed and appeared in front of Yang Kai. He coldly shouted, "Kid, let's stop here." Before he could finish his words, Yang Kai had already swept past him like a gust of wind. With a loud rumbling sound, an iceberg behind the middle-aged man shattered in an instant. How arrogant! The middle-aged man coldly snorted. Without any apparent movement, he suddenly appeared beside Yang Kai and pointed his finger towards Yang Kai's waist. Yang Kai's face went pale and his speed suddenly decreased. At the same time, an extremely cold energy spread through his body, causing the circulation of his yuan qi to slow down. It was as if he had fallen into a quagmire, unable to move an inch. A thin layer of frost appeared on the surface of Yang Kai's body at a speed visible to the naked eye, even his hair was frozen solid. A second-order saint. Yang Kai's heart clenched as he twisted his body, quickly avoiding this middle-aged man. The yuan qi in his body rushed out violently, quickly dispelling the chill in his body and mind, restoring his freedom in the next moment. The middle-aged man showed a look of surprise and couldn't help muttering under his breath, "What a fierce little brat." With his second-order Saint Realm cultivation, injecting his frozen yuan qi into Yang Kai's body would have been enough to easily freeze anyone else, but this boy had only suffered a slight hindrance in his movements and was fine. Attacking Yang Kai once was already extremely difficult for him. If he were to attack again, it would be outrageous. A master like this middle-aged man was someone who was confident in his status and generally wouldn't act like bullying the weak. "Big brother, why aren't you attacking yet?" Chen Yu saw the middle-aged man standing mid-air with his hands crossed behind his back, giving off the demeanor of a powerful master, and couldn't help urging him. The middle-aged man frowned and quickly said, "What's the matter? Little brat, you should stop. I won't attack you again, but don't act too presumptuous. If you have something to say, let's all sit down and discuss it." As the middle-aged man spoke, the other two Saint Realm masters from Ice Sect blocked Yang Kai's path of retreat. These two didn't attack Yang Kai, instead showing calm and relaxed expressions as they stared at him with great interest, their eyes flashing with curiosity. 4 Saint Realm masters. Ice Sect's tyrannical heritage was clearly visible. Yang Kai was in the middle of this encirclement and knew that with the other side's lineup, he couldn't continue to act recklessly. Perceiving the middle-aged man's sincerity, he also stopped and stood mid-air. "What can I talk to you about?" Yang Kai looked at the middle-aged man and asked indifferently. The middle-aged man smiled slightly and nodded. "I am an elder of Ice Sect, Chen Hao." Yang Kai glanced over at the beautiful middle-aged woman and sneered, "She is also an elder of Ice Sect. How do I know you two aren't wearing the same pair of pants?" Chen Yu's pretty face went cold and was about to speak but was interrupted by Chen Hao, who smiled and said, "She and I are brother and sister. Don't you think we're wearing the same pair of pants?" "Big brother." Chen Yu glared at him bitterly. "But you have no choice." Chen Hao's expression became cold. "You destroyed so many of my Ice Sect's properties. If you don't give me an explanation, do you think I'll let you go? You'd best have a good reason for your actions, otherwise I'll let you taste all the torture in this world before torturing you to death." Yang Kai sneered and took back his wind and thunder wings, glancing over at Chen Yu and saying, "I was looking for someone, but she refused to let me see her." "Looking for someone? Who are you looking for?" Chen Hao frowned. "Su Yang." Hearing this, Chen Hao and the other two Saint Realm masters raised their brow. "Big brother, this person should be the one that old fogey mentioned before. Qian Yu whispered to Qian Hao's ear. Qian Hao nodded slightly, indicating he understood, but still grumbled, if that's the case, why didn't you let him see her? Why did you have to cause such a big ruckus? Su Yang had an accident, Qian Yu said somewhat awkwardly. An accident? Qian Hao was shocked. What happened? Although Qian Hao was an elder of Ice Sect, he had been in retreat for the past few years and didn't know much about the sect's affairs. If it weren't for Yang Kai making such a big ruckus today, he wouldn't have been alarmed. Let's not talk about this for now, I'll explain it to you later. It's just that now is not the time for Su Yang to see anyone, and this little brat is ruthless and cruel, he's obviously not a good person. How can I let Su Yang come into contact with such a person? He's an old acquaintance, Qian Hao sighed heavily. I think it's more like a toad wanting to eat swan meat, Qian Yu coldly snorted, glaring at Yang Kai with even more disdain. Seeing his sister's poor impression of this little brat, Qian Hao didn't say anything more. In any case, although his sister was in the wrong this time, this little brat didn't put Ice Sect in his eyes at all, destroying so many icebergs at once. If Qian Hao really tried to turn this big issue into a small one, then a small one, he wouldn't be able to explain himself in front of the sect's disciples. Considering all this, Qian Hao coldly said, just because of this, you're willing to go to such lengths and even destroy my Ice Sect's property. If I'm not happy, no one will be happy. Little brat, you're quite arrogant, but I don't know if you can afford the consequences. I won't kill you, but I'll give you two choices. Either you join my Ice Sect as a slave and pay for the losses you've caused this time, or I'll cut off your hands. Choose for yourself. Saying so, Qian Hao stared coldly at Yang Kai, wondering what choice he would make. I won't choose either. Qian Hao smiled and shook his head, that's not up to you. Seeing that your aptitude is quite good, I'll choose the first option. Although your secret art is contrary to my Ice Sect's, you can still be considered a talent, it's a pity to destroy you like this. Saying so, an invisible energy suddenly burst forth and directly imprisoned Yang Kai. Yang Kai didn't show any intention of dodging and simply allowed himself to be bound. Not only did he not panic, he instead wore a look of victory as he sneered lightly. What are you laughing at? Qian Hao frowned, from now on, you'll follow me and take care of me. Rest assured, I won't treat you badly. Once you enter Ice Sect as a slave, you'll eventually be able to see the person you want to see, but that's only if you behave yourself, otherwise you'll suffer. You want me to take care of you? Yang Kai laughed. I'm afraid you don't have that kind of luck. Qian Hao coldly snorted, allowing you to serve me is an act of kindness, don't fail to appreciate it. Another Saint Realm Master also chimed in, that's right, little brat, Brother Qian Hao is being generous, don't fail to appreciate his kindness. The last person also chimed in, angering Brother Qian Hao won't do you any good. Qian Hao looked at Yang Kai with interest and smiled, I don't care what you came to Ice Sect for, nor do I care what kind of grievances you've suffered, but the fact that you've acted so atrociously here is a fact. Not killing you is already the greatest mercy I can give you. Now tell me, what qualifications do you have to bargain with me? Do you think with your strength, you can escape from my hands? Look around yourself. Yang Kai's lips curled into a sarcastic smile as he lightly reminded her. Hearing this, the four Saint Realm Masters all showed strange looks as they quickly scanned their surroundings. The next moment, the expressions of the four saints all changed greatly. From the beginning, they had felt something was off, but all of their attention had been focused on Yang Kai, so they hadn't been able to investigate carefully. But now, under Yang Kai's reminder, they discovered that their surroundings were completely silent. Almost all of the Ice Sect disciples who had been forced out of the Ice Mountain were completely silent. Moreover, all of the Ice Sect disciples had pained looks on their faces and were unconscious. Chapter 733. After a cursory examination, Qian Kai found that more than 200 people were in such a situation, regardless of their cultivation or age, each one of them was the same, their life auras somewhat chaotic. Even the sect's transcendents weren't able to avoid this. It was impossible for the sect's disciples to become like this for no reason, so the only explanation was that this little brat had done something to them. But what kind of skill did he possess to do such a thing under the noses of 4 saints? Qian Hao and the others couldn't help feeling suspicious. Did you do this? Qian Hao winked at the other 2 Saint Realm Masters while glaring towards Yang Kai coldly. Guess. What did you do to them? Why are they all in such pain? Qian Hao asked sternly. Yang Kai laughed heartily, his smile extremely carefree. The 2 masters who had been instructed by Qian Hao to investigate were shocked to find that there were no wounds on these disciples at all, nor were there any signs of poisoning. Looking at each other, both of them wore looks of confusion. If they weren't poisoned or injured, how could their disciples all become like this? Not thinking too much about it, the 2 of them quickly released their divine senses, wanting to carefully investigate what had happened to their disciples. But not long after they released their divine senses, both of their faces changed as they called out in alarm, "What is this?" While screaming, they began fleeing in panic, as if there was something powerful chasing them from behind. Seeing this scene, whether it was Chen Yu or Qian Hao, both felt a chill run down their spines as a chill ran down their spines. "What's wrong with you?" Chen Yu asked. "Don't come over, don't use your divine sense to investigate." One of them went pale as he ran and shouted, "There's something that targets our divine sense, we can't get rid of it if we touch it." At the same time, the other man let out a miserable scream, his face filled with pain. The 2 First Order Saints both looked like they had encountered a great disaster, both of them panicking. Qian Yu wanted to help but didn't know where to start. Qian Hao glanced over at Yang Kai coldly, a thoughtful look appearing on his face, a deep sense of dread flashing across his eyes as he quietly stared towards Yuan Qi. This little brat's methods were too strange, even a First Order Saint had suffered a calamity, so he didn't dare not be on guard. After a while, the 2 Saint Realm Masters gradually stabilized, but both of their faces were still pale, their brow furrowed, a look of lingering fear on their faces. "Brat, what did you put here?" One of them looked at Yang Kai with a strange expression and no longer looked at him with contempt. He endured the pain in his spirit and asked. "Worthy of being a Saint Realm Master, you can still maintain your consciousness." Yang Kai's expression was relaxed as he praised. Not only were they able to maintain their consciousness, but their combat strength was also not damaged. In other words, they were not much different from before. They just had some worries. "What's going on?" Qian Yu asked in horror. She was well aware of the strength of these 2 elders. If even they were affected, she would not have been able to escape either. Some kind of imperceptible insect has spread throughout the knowledge seas of those disciples. When we used our divine senses to investigate, we were also infected. One of them glared at Yang Kai with resentment and slowly explained, "Although we were able to temporarily suppress these insects, it will take some time to get rid of them. With the disciples' current strength, I'm afraid they won't be able to do so." "Exotic insects." Qian Yu's beautiful face paled. "What kind of insects?" "I don't know, we'll have to ask him." Qian Hao took a deep breath, hesitating for a moment before releasing the shackles on Yang Kai and saying lightly, "Boy, you win. I'll let you go first to show my ice sect's sincerity. Now answer our questions obediently. A wise man submits to circumstances." Yang Kai smiled sarcastically. The faces of the 4 elders sank. 4 saints against a single First Order transcendent, but not only were they unable to do anything to him, 2 of them had also fallen victim to his underhanded tricks. Ice Sect's foundation had been destroyed and hundreds of its disciples were still alive. This time, they had lost a great deal of face. Although Yang Kai's sarcasm had angered them greatly, none of them dared to act out. "What kind of insects are they?" Qian Hao asked in a deep voice. "Since you released them, you should know better than anyone else, right?" Yang Kai gently nodded and said, "Soul-devouring insects, haven't you heard of them before?" Hearing this, the 4 elders' expression became solemn. Naturally, they had heard of the soul-devouring insects. These exotic ancient insects were so small that they were almost imperceptible and specialized in devouring spiritual energy. Once infected, they would rapidly multiply, making them extremely difficult to eliminate. However, these were only exotic insects they had heard of in legends. Who would have thought they were still alive? "Little brat." One of the elders who had been infected by the soul-devouring insects coldly snorted, Although my ice sect is isolated from the rest of the world, we are not ignorant. These soul-devouring insects are indeed powerful, but to think they can devour the soul of a Saint Realm cultivator is simply a fantasy. These can't possibly be soul-devouring insect. Soul-devouring insects were something a Saint Realm cultivator could easily deal with and avoid harming themselves. Powerful spiritual energy could easily kill these exotic ancient insects in an instant. So when Yang Kai reported the name of these insects, his first reaction was that he was lying. Yang Kai grinned. Sorry, my soul-devouring insects may not be the same as the ones described in legends, they are actually a bit more powerful. It had been almost 2 years since Yang Kai had followed Tsungyan and Feiyu into the ancient mansion and obtained these exotic ancient insects. During these 2 years, the soul-devouring insects had been living on the 5-colored island in Yang Kai's knowledge sea and had been greatly nourished. Yang Kai could also feel that they had become even more powerful. While Yang Kai was entangled with Qian Yu, he had destroyed many of the ice mountains and scattered countless soul-devouring insects along the way. All the ice sect disciples who had been forced out had fallen victim to these insects, without exception. You say they're soul-devouring insects. Why are you safe and sound? How did you release them? The man asked coldly. You ask too many questions, I have no obligation to answer them. Yang Kai glanced at him contemptuously. I can only tell you that your ice sect disciples won't be in danger for half an hour, but after half an hour, I can't guarantee that. These little insects aren't very obedient. You're digging your own grave. If even a single one of my ice sect disciples dies, you can prepare to die. Yang Kai laughed. You want to bury hundreds of people with me? As long as you're willing, I don't care if I die. The 4 people suddenly went silent, feeling a headache coming on. Ice sect didn't have many disciples, at most 500, if 200 to 300 of them were to die at once, the loss would be too great. This little brat was simply an unscrupulous demon, a piece of meat on the chopping block, hateful to the extreme. The 4 people hated Yang Kai to the bone, but for fear of breaking the vases, they didn't dare act rashly, although they had absolute confidence they could kill this little brat in one blow. But after killing him, what would happen to those soul-devouring insects? But if they had to admit defeat now, none of them would be able to swallow this insult. Just as they were silently cursing in their hearts, a woman's voice suddenly floated over. Little brat, is your surname Yang? Yang Kai's face changed dramatically because he hadn't noticed anyone approaching, but when he looked towards the source of the voice, he was shocked to find that not far away, a graceful figure had appeared. This woman looked extremely young, at most about the same age as Su Yang, but her cultivation was unfathomable and her aura was stable, like an ancient well without any fluctuations. Yang Kai felt great pressure from her. This kind of pressure was something he hadn't felt from the 4 elders of Ice Sect. Standing there, she seemed to be one with this frozen world, omnipresent. 3rd Order Saint. Yang Kai took a deep breath, his expression becoming vigilant. Although he knew this was a powerful enemy, after listening to this woman's words, the violence and anger in Yang Kai's heart actually weakened significantly. Her voice seemed to contain a mysterious power that seemed to be able to dissolve the resentment and injustice in his heart. It was soft and gentle, like the sound of nature, extremely pleasant to the ear. Greetings, Sect Master. Qian Hao and the others also bowed respectfully. The woman smiled lightly. There's no need to be polite, isn't the noise you've made a bit too big? Although her tone didn't reveal any trace of blame, Qian Hao and the others couldn't help feeling a little ashamed, as if they wanted to find a hole to crawl into, their faces flushed red. Yang Kai's eyes flashed as he asked, Are you the Sect Master of Ice Sect? I am the Sect Master of Ice Sect, Qing Ya. The woman nodded gently, her face filled with a faint smile. The woman gently nodded with a smile on her face. Her aura was extremely pure, like a glacier without the slightest impurity. Just looking at her would make one feel refreshed. Her voice was soft as she asked again, Is your surname Yang? The hostility on Yang Kai's face was greatly reduced and his expression relaxed as he nodded slightly. Then there's no mistake, the person Meng Wu Ya was talking about was you, right? Yes. You're even more outstanding than he described. I hadn't expected you to find this place so quickly. Qing Ya smiled lightly. I also didn't expect Ice Sect's sect master to be so young and beautiful. I thought Treasurer Meng's friend was a white-haired old woman, but seeing you today is an eye-opener. Yang Kai looked her up and down, a look of amazement filling his face, but his eyes were clear and filled with amazement, without the slightest obscenity. What do you think? Qing Yue seemed to be very happy, her smile becoming more and more cheerful. Smelly brat, smooth-talking. Qian Yu curled her lips. Sure enough, you're not a good person. Treasurer Meng actually knows someone like you. It seems I've underestimated him. Yang Kai nodded seriously. Qing Yue giggled. Yang Kai's flattery was so subtle that it made her feel quite happy. Qian Hao and the others were secretly watching from the sidelines, their hearts filled with a bitter taste. They hadn't seen their sect master smile like this for a long time. None of them had expected that a little brat who had popped out of nowhere would be able to tease their sect master to such an extent. This little brat is definitely a womanizer, otherwise, how could he have such a clear understanding of women's thoughts? All of them cursed in their hearts, their expressions filled with disdain. Chapter 734. Outside the ice mountain, Ice Sect's sect master Qing Yue had strangely appeared, but not only did she not show any dissatisfaction or hostility towards Yang Kai, she was actually quite amiable, making Yang Kai feel embarrassed to continue making trouble. Yang Kai had already decided to shed all pretense of cordiality with Ice Sect and cause a ruckus here before taking Su Yang away. However, Ice Sect's sect master Qing Yue's attitude made it impossible for Yang Kai to use his full strength. She had greeted him with a smile, so if he continued to act like he did just now, he would appear somewhat unreasonable. You're here to find Su Yang, right? Meng Wu Yue mentioned this before. Qing Yue still asked softly. Yang Kai nodded lightly. I won't hide it from you, Su Yang had an accident. Yang Kai's face suddenly became cold. Qing Yue quickly said, but you can rest assured, her life isn't in any danger, she just sealed herself in ice. Sealed herself in ice? Yang Kai frowned. Her current situation is the result of her own choice. Of course, my ice sect also bears some responsibility for it. Come with me, you'll understand when you see her. Just a few words won't be enough. Qing Yue beckoned to Yang Kai. Sect Master. Qian Yu hurriedly called out, obviously wanting to stop them, but after being glared at by Qing Yue, she quickly shut up. Right, before that, can you take back those little insects from my Ice Sect disciples' knowledge seas? Since you released these insects, you should have a way to take them back, right? Qing Yue looked at Yang Kai with a smile. Sorry, before confirming the condition of my senior sister, I'm not going to take back those insects. Yang Kai shook his head. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. Right now, he only had this trump card. Using the lives of more than 200 Ice Sect disciples as a hostage was the only way to make Ice Sect hesitate to attack him. Although he felt that this Qing Yue was a trustworthy person, he still needed to be on guard against her. If she suddenly attacked him after he received the soul-devouring insects, Yang Kai didn't have the ability to survive a third-order saint. You're really careful, Qing Yue shook her head helplessly. If that's the case, my Ice Sect disciples won't have an accident, right? I've already said that their lives will not be in danger for the next hour. Yang Kai's expression was indifferent. All right, come with me. Qian Yu, you come with me. Qian Hao, you guys stay outside and look after the disciples. Yes. Everyone nodded respectfully. Qian Hao stared coldly at Yang Kai and threatened, Brat, don't play any tricks, or you'll suffer. Yang Kai couldn't be bothered with him. As Qing Yue flew forward, she came to a stop in front of the ice mountain where Yang Kai had sensed Su Yang's aura. Qing Yue waved her jade hand and a strange door appeared halfway up the ice mountain. This gate was also carved out of ice crystals, and mysterious energy flowed through it. There was also a faint array pattern on it, which was obviously able to isolate the probing of divine sense. After entering the ice mountain, a bone-chilling chill washed over them from all directions. Yang Kai's expression became solemn as he hurriedly circulated his yuan qi to expel the cold from his body. Feeling the hot energy in his body, Qian Yu showed a look of disgust on her pretty face. Everyone in Ice Sect cultivated ice attribute secret arts and martial skills, so they were extremely sensitive to this kind of energy. The interior of the ice mountain was crystal clear, and the road inside seemed to be paved with crystal. It was a beautiful sight to behold and was dotted with strange stones used for illumination, illuminating the ice crystal corridor in a dazzling light. As they walked down, young Kai's breathing gradually became heavier. He could clearly feel that he was getting closer and closer to Su Yang. After walking for about half a cup of tea's worth of time, the three of them arrived in front of a huge ice room. Qing Huai glanced back at Yang Kai and said, "Su Yang is in here, but you have to promise me that you won't get too excited." "I know," Yang Kai responded faintly. Qing Huai nodded lightly, pushed open the door of the ice room, and was the first to walk in, Yang Kai and Chen Yu following closely behind. Inside the ice room, there was nothing but an ice bed. On this ice bed, Su Yang's eyes were closed, her body wrapped in ice, seemingly in a deep sleep. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as a monstrous anger rose in his heart, but he quickly suppressed it and slowly walked towards the ice bed. Qing Huai and Chen Yu both stared at him, the two of them strangely discovering that the moment this arrogant and insidious young man saw Su Yang, his ferocious face calmed down and his pair of eyes filled with a deep sense of longing, so gentle it was almost as if water would drip from them. The expression on Yang Kai's face constantly changed, seemingly a mix of fear and expectation as he slowly approached the ice bed. As he walked, his expression gradually calmed down. Arriving in front of the ice bed, Yang Kai stared at the jade figure on the bed, his mouth curling into a slight smile. Su Yang was lying on the bed, her life was not in danger, but her whole body was wrapped in an extremely strange ice, as if she was sealed in ice, completely unresponsive to Yang Kai's arrival. Yang Kai stretched out his hand but couldn't touch her. Quietly observing, Su Yang's expression was calm, her two hands naturally resting on her flat stomach. Before she was sealed in ice, she seemed to have a high level of awareness and didn't feel the slightest pain. Moreover, at this moment, the Yuan Qi in Su Yang's body was still circulating rapidly, and the secret art she cultivated was still operating at a faster rate than usual. Knowing that Yang Kai's mood was fluctuating, Qing Huai and Chen Yu tactfully kept quiet and didn't disturb him. As time passed by, Qing Huai's expression didn't change, but Chen Yu was becoming impatient. More than 200 ice sect disciples had encountered a great disaster. If Yang Kai didn't take back his soul-devouring insects after half an hour, they would all die, so Chen Yu couldn't help urging, "Little brat, how much longer are you going to watch? No matter how much you watch, you won't be able to wake her up. Not only has she frozen her body, but she has also frozen her consciousness." Yang Kai suddenly turned around and stared at her coldly. Chen Yu unconsciously averted her gaze, as if she had a guilty conscience. "Is this a martial skill?" Yang Kai turned to Qing Huai and asked. Qing Huai nodded lightly. "Yen, this is one of my ice sect's secret arts, ice body sealed heart. After using this secret art, one's Yuan Qi will condense, sealing one's body and mind in ice, causing one to lose all sensation in an instant." "Then why is senior sister's secret art still operating?" Yang Kai frowned. Qing Huai smiled lightly. "Ice body sealed heart is a secret art that assists one's cultivation. When my ice sect's disciples use this technique, they can force themselves into a state of complete selflessness. Cultivating in this state allows them to cultivate much faster than normal. Many disciples use this move when they are in seclusion. Depending on the amount of true essence and comprehension used to use this martial skill, the duration of the frozen body locked heart is also different." "How long does my senior sister's secret art last?" Yang Kai asked. Qing Huai's expression became gloomy as she slowly shook her head. "I can't say, it could be a dozen years, it could be a few decades, it could also be forever. Su Yang is currently using the Yuan Qi she cultivates to maintain the frozen state outside her body." Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. "Why does she want to freeze herself? Did she suffer some kind of grievance in your ice sect? Was she abused?" Saying so, he turned an unfriendly look towards Chen Yu. "Smelly brat, what are you looking at me for? I like her so much, how could I abuse her?" Chen Yu suddenly became annoyed. "Little brat, don't worry, Elder Chen Yu won't mistreat Su Yang, she still wants to accept your senior sister as her disciple." Qing Huai quickly tried to persuade him. "I'm afraid she won't have that kind of luck." Yang Kai hated this beautiful woman Chen Yu from the bottom of his heart. However, this matter really has something to do with elder Chen Yu. Qing Yue sighed softly. Su Yang becoming like this is partly her responsibility. Chen Yu's expression also became gloomy as she said bitterly, I didn't expect her to be like this, nor did I know when she learned the ice body sealed heart. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have forced her like this, Saying so, she glanced over at Yang Kai and coldly said, Boy, I won't deny this, but I did it for her own good, I didn't mean to harm her. What happened? Yang Kai's eyes spat fire. Although Chen Yu had said so, it was still just her side of the story, so he still had to ask her clearly about the situation. Chen Yu, tell me. Qing Yue rubbed her forehead. Chen Yu nodded slightly and began recounting what happened after Su Yang entered Ice Sect. 2 years ago, Meng Wu Yue suddenly brought Xia Ningchang and Su Yang to Ice Sect and found Ice Sect's sect master Qing Yue, entrusting her with the task of taking care of Su Yang temporarily. Ice Sect lived in seclusion in this ice world and generally did not accept outsiders, but Meng Wu Yue had some friendship with Qing Yue after all. Unable to resist this old man's shameless coaxing, Qing Yue had no choice but to agree. After entrusting Su Yang to Ice Sect, Meng Wu Yue and Xia Ningchang left. That old man said that what he was going to do was very dangerous. Taking his disciple with him was one thing, but he couldn't bring Su Yang along and put her in danger, so he secretly left Su Yang here. It wasn't until that old man left that Su Yang learned the truth and had no choice but to temporarily live in Ice Sect, Chen Yu explained. Yang Kai nodded lightly. Treasurer Meng's actions were understandable. He definitely hadn't told Su Yang his purpose in coming to Ice Sect in advance, otherwise, with Su Yang's personality, she would definitely have followed Treasurer Meng and helped him instead of staying in Ice Sect to live a comfortable life. And then? Yang Kai asked. Then Sect Master handed Su Yang over to me. At first, I didn't pay much attention to her. Although her strength wasn't low when she came here, it wasn't too high either. But soon, I discovered that this child's talent was unparalleled and her cultivation speed was incredibly fast. What was most commendable though was that the secret art she cultivated was in line with my ice attribute secret art. I think that old man must have had a premeditated plan to entrust Su Yang to Ice Sect. Yang Kai's mouth twitched, thinking that it would be strange if Meng Wu Yue didn't have a premeditated plan. Meng Wu Yue definitely knew many powerful masters on Tongxian realm, and Chuling Xiao was an old acquaintance of his, yet he had sent Su Yang here. Obviously, he had taken a fancy to Ice Sect's heritage. Meng Wu Yue's move was obviously to get Ice Sect to help teach Su Yang for free. If it were Yang Kai, he would have done the same. Chapter 735. After witnessing Su Yang's extraordinary aptitude, Chen Yu had gradually taken a liking to her and wanted to test her. How could she have imagined that Su Yang would be able to learn all of Ice Sect's martial skills and secret scriptures so quickly? Chen Yu was pleasantly surprised, thinking she had picked up a treasure. From then on, she began to carefully teach Su Yang, taking great care of her. Ice Sect's restricted area, the Ice Cave, was even opened to her, allowing her to freely enter and cultivate. After a few days like this, Chen Yu proposed to accept Su Yang as a disciple, but to her surprise, Su Yang did not agree, causing her to feel a little disappointed. However, cherishing Su Yang's aptitude, Chen Yu didn't blame her and instead continued to take care of her. Su Yang was very grateful to her, and although she didn't call her master, she still treated her as a junior. This child's aptitude is unquestionable, and her physique is very pure. I don't know what kind of fortuitous encounter she had, but it seems to be very close to the legendary ice crystal body, Chen Yu slowly said. Her face filled with doubt, but after carefully reading some ancient books, I found that her physique is not the ice crystal body. Yang Kai snorted lightly. He had given Su Yang so much myriad drug liquid and myriad drug milk at the time, after so many years of consuming it, it would be strange if her physique wasn't pure. Moreover, I often see her alone in contemplation, and every time she does so, a happy smile will appear on her face. Chen Yu glanced at Yang Kai coldly. There will also be a look of reminiscence in her eyes. Yang Kai sniffed. Qing Yue pursed her lips and smiled, quietly sizing up Yang Kai, also somewhat puzzled, wondering what was so special about this little brat that he could actually make Su Yang so moved. My ice sect's disciples cultivate ice attribute secret arts, so they must be pure of heart and few desires in order to achieve great success. This child often shows such a look of yearning. It's all because of you. Qian Yu said, her anger rising as she glared hatefully at Yang Kai, seemingly thinking that it was this guy who was hindering Su Yang's future development. Yang Kai curled his lips and said with disdain, "You old woman, how would you know the beauty of female love? You." Qian Yu was so angry that her body started to tremble. Her face turned pale and her yuan qi started to surge. It was as if she wanted to slap Yang Kai to death to vent her anger. "This child, what are you talking about?" Qing Yue rebuked as she glared at Yang Kai. Yang Kai said impatiently, "Okay, go on." Qian Yu clenched her teeth tightly, her chest heaving up and down. It seemed that she was quite angry, and her beautiful eyes were filled with hatred. After a long while, she finally calmed down under Qing Yue's comforting words. She turned her head and said, "I'm not in the mood, let's not talk about it anymore." Yang Kai sneered and looked towards Qing Yue with a questioning gaze. The ice master sighed helplessly and slowly said, "I'll tell you. Originally, Su Yang's aptitude was excellent and her progress was gratifying. Elder Qian Yu wanted to accept her as a disciple, but after being rejected, he didn't pay her any mind. He only thought that one day, he would be able to convince her with sincerity and one day she would willingly enter my ice sect and become a disciple. Unfortunately, good times don't last." Qing Yue frowned slightly. "After coming here for a year, Elder Qian Yu and I both discovered a problem with Su Yang." "What problem?" Yang Kai asked anxiously. "She seems to be cultivating more than one kind of secret art. Inside her body, there is another kind of secret art that coexists with her original ice attribute secret art." Qing Yue slowly shook her head. If she didn't have this kind of secret art, Su Yang would have no hidden dangers if she only cultivated the ice attribute secret art, but this unknown secret art seems to be hindering the progress of her original secret art. Hindrance. Although there is no problem for the time being, if this situation continues for a long time without proper guidance, not only will Su Yang's strength not make any progress, it will instead be in danger of regressing. Qing Yue looked at Yang Kai. "Since you and this child are senior sister, and she is so devoted to you, you should know what kind of secret art she cultivates, right?" "I know," Yang Kai nodded. "What kind of secret art?" Qing Yue and Qian Yu both asked quickly. "A dual cultivation secret art," Yang Kai said bluntly. The two women blushed at once, Qian Yu cursing in disdain, "You bastard, you really are the culprit behind Su Yang's misfortune. If you hadn't taken her virginity early on and allowed her to maintain her natural body, how could she have achieved so little now?" "What do you know?" Yang Kai snorted disdainfully. This woman seemed to want to put all the blame on him, causing Yang Kai to be very dissatisfied. From the time he had met Su Yang until now, cultivating the joyous unification art had not only brought her no harm, it had instead brought her many benefits. The reason why Yang Kai and Su Yang's strength had progressed so quickly was because of the joyous unification art. A dual cultivation secret art? Qing Yue frowned. How could you cultivate such a vulgar secret art? Although a dual cultivation secret art can allow one to grow quickly, generally speaking, one's foundation will not be stable. Sooner or later it will become a hidden danger on your path to growth. How is a dual cultivation secret art? Isn't your thinking too conservative? Yang Kai glanced at her. Besides, Su Yang and I both have a stable foundation, you should be clear about this. Qing Yue's expression suddenly became suspicious. Indeed, if she had really cultivated a dual cultivation secret art, it would have been impossible for Su Yang to have her current foundation and cultivation. With her strength reaching such a level, all the hidden dangers she had buried in the past should have erupted long ago. But she was still outstanding. This little brat in front of her was also the same. Being able to contend with a master like Qian Yu with just a first-order transcendent cultivation was not something just anyone could accomplish. The only explanation was that the dual cultivation secret art these two were cultivating was definitely very high-end, and not only was it not harmful to the two of them, it also had various benefits. It wasn't that such a secret art didn't exist in this world, But when people heard of a jewel cultivation secret art, it was inevitable that they would think it was some kind of dirty trick. Let's not talk about this for now. After all, we haven't seen a jewel cultivation secret art, so it's not appropriate for us to comment on it. Qing Huai's face flushed red as she changed the subject, but when Elder Qian Yu discovered this problem, she hoped that Su Yang would abolish that unknown secret art and devote herself to cultivating her ice attribute secret art. If she abolishes that secret art, my ice sect's other supreme secret art can also be cultivated, which will only bring her benefits, no harm. My senior sister refused, right? Yang Kai stared at her coldly. Qian Yu and I didn't know why she refused so bluntly, but now it seems that this secret art should be the connection between you and her, so she refused to abolish it. Qing Huai sighed faintly. This child can be considered an infatuated person. Unfortunately, some people aren't worthy of her. Qian Yu's words were laced with sarcasm, her face filled with disdain. If you dare speak any more nonsense, I'll have your ice sect's 200 disciples die right now. Yang Kai glared at Qian Yu coldly, causing Qian Yu to grit her teeth, a ferocious expression appearing on her face as if she wanted to swallow Yang Kai alive. Qing Huai continued, Elder Qian Yu tried to persuade her several times, but she refused. In the end, Elder Qian Yu tried to forcibly abolish her secret art, but unfortunately, she seemed to be aware of this, and before Elder Qian Yu could act, she used her ice body sealed heart and sealed herself in ice, not giving Elder Qian Yu a chance to act. Yang Kai grinned maliciously, so, the reason my senior sister became like this is all this woman's fault. As he spoke, his yuan qi surged violently, overflowing with murderous intent. Qing Huai's expression changed as she quickly said, Don't be angry. Although I also feel that Qian Yu's approach was somewhat wrong, wanting to act without Su Yang's consent, in truth, she had good intentions. My ice sect's secret art isn't something anyone can learn. It can only be said that her good intentions led to the wrong thing and harmed Su Yang. That is truly a great kindness. I thank you on behalf of my senior sister. Yang Kai grit his teeth and coldly snorted, his voice as cold as the wind blowing from the depths of hell, causing one's hair to stand on end. Qian Yu surprisingly didn't refute Yang Kai and instead wore a look of shame and indignation, her eyes darting around as she wore a pained expression. If she continued to argue, Yang Kai really might not be able to restrain himself and attack her here. Seeing her regretful and ashamed appearance, Yang Kai's murderous intent suddenly lessened. This woman was certainly hateful, but it seemed that she genuinely cared about Su Yang. Based on this point, Yang Kai didn't want to tangle with her anymore. Taking a deep breath, Yang Kai calmed the monstrous anger in his heart and slowly said, I understand what happened. Qing Huai frowned and softly said, In fact, this isn't a bad thing. The ice body locked heart isn't harmful to Su Yang. In fact, if she remains in this state, she will be able to rapidly improve her strength. When she wakes up again, her cultivation will have greatly increased. Wait for her to wake up. Yang Kai sneered, when will she wake up? 10 years? 20 years? Or even longer? Qing Huai and Qian Yu remained silent. Yang Kai's question was too tricky for them to answer. There had never been an ice sect disciple who had used the ice body sealed heart to such an extent. Su Yang hadn't even considered whether or not she would be able to wake up. If she didn't find a way to solve this problem, perhaps she would remain in this state forever. Now that I've explained the situation to you, my ice sect's 200 disciples, Qing Huai asked. You can rest assured, in the name of ice sect's sect master, as long as those 200 disciples are out of danger, no one here will embarrass you again. Yang Kai stared at her deeply for a moment before nodding lightly. Once again following Qing Huai and Qian Yu out, Yang Kai spread out his divine sense, covering a large area and retrieving all the soul-devouring insects he had released. However, the two Saint Realm elders of Ice Sect who had been struck by these exotic ancient insects didn't ask Yang Kai to help them and instead returned to their own residences to enter retreat. They were confident that with their powerful cultivation and spiritual energy, they could kill the insects that had invaded their knowledge seas, so naturally, they didn't want to owe Yang Kai a favor. Qian Yu and the others carefully examined the disciples and after confirming that they weren't in mortal danger, they relaxed. Chapter 736. Ice Sect. Half a month had passed since Yang Kai arrived, and during this time, he had been accompanying the sleeping Su Yang in her ice room, not leaving her side at all. In another ice room, the Ice Master and the 4 Saint Realm Elders were gathered together, seemingly in a heated discussion. The 4 of them were each expressing their own views while the Ice Master, Qing Ya, sat silently on a crystal-clear ice chair. One of the Saint Realm Masters whose knowledge sea had been invaded by those soul-devouring insects shouted angrily, "That little brat doesn't seem to be anything good. I don't know what kind of special method he used to control those exotic ancient insects, but from the way he acted against my Ice Sect disciples, it's clear he is a vicious and merciless brat. Such a person needs to be expelled as soon as possible." Another Saint Realm Master who had suffered a loss at the hands of Yang Kai also nodded quickly, "I agree." Saying so, he turned to Qian Hao and asked, "Brother Qian Hao, what do you two think?" "He must leave." Qian Hao hesitated for a moment before quickly saying, "My Ice Sect is a pure land. The moment he arrived here he brought so much strife. Such a person is always a scourge and cannot be allowed to remain." Qian Yu didn't say a word, but from her expression, it was obvious she didn't want Yang Kai to remain in Ice Sect. "Sect Master." Qian Hao looked up at Qing Ya. "It's time for him to leave. Staying in my Ice Sect all this time isn't proper." Qing Ya smiled lightly. "Why are you in such a hurry to drive him away?" Although his previous methods were indeed a bit extreme, from his standpoint, he was forced to do so. On top of that, he showed mercy to my Ice Sect disciples. The souls of those disciples who were injured weren't damaged and will only need to rest for a few days to recover. We can't just burn the bridge after crossing the river. Qian Yu's beautiful eyes flashed as she sighed. Besides, he came here looking for his senior sister. Now that Su Yang has fallen into a deep sleep and we don't know when she will wake up, if we insist on driving him away, I'm afraid it will only backfire and force him to release those exotic ancient insects again. Then what do we do? Do we just let him stay in my Ice Sect forever? There's no harm in letting him take Su Yang away. Qian Hao proposed. When that old man came here, didn't he say that if someone came looking for Su Yang, we were to let them pass? We wouldn't embarrass them, nor would we bother with their previous mistakes. How about we just let him take Su Yang away? Qian Yu frowned. "Big brother, with Su Yang's current condition, if you let that little brat take her away, I won't feel at ease." Although she hated Yang Kai, she still loved Su Yang from the bottom of her heart. Naturally, he had to do everything in his power to protect him. He shook his head decisively. "I won't agree to this." All right. Qing Ya waved her hand and said, "Let's not talk about this for now. From what I can see, that brat is also an infatuated person. For the past few days, he has been staying in the ice room without moving at all. How about this? I'll go talk to him first and see what he thinks. Perhaps he doesn't intend to remain in my Ice Sect forever." When the 4 elders heard this, they could only nod. The 3 male elders quickly left, but Qian Yu stayed behind. "Sect leader, I'll go with you." Qing Ya lightly nodded. The 2 of them got up and walked towards the ice mountain where Su Yang was. A short time later, the pair arrived in front of the ice room and gently knocked on the door. There was no response from inside, but Qing Ya felt some unusual energy fluctuations. Frowning, Qian Yu pushed open the door and entered. At this moment, inside the ice room, not only was there a biting chill, but there was also a scorching heat. Glancing forward, Qing Ya couldn't help covering her mouth. Yang Kai's hands were actually covering the layer of ice around Su Yang's body, his yuan qi surging. "You idiot, what are you doing?" Qian Yu immediately shouted, her figure flickering as she arrived in front of Yang Kai and waved her hand towards him. Yang Kai didn't try to resist, instead just turning his head and staring at her coldly. Qian Yu's heart clenched and the palm that was about to hit Yang Kai suddenly stopped, grit her teeth and shouted, "What are you doing? It's none of your damn business." Yang Kai snorted. Qing Ya also hurriedly walked over and worriedly said, "Don't do that, you'll hurt Su Yang." "I know what I'm doing." Yang Kai responded faintly. He didn't want Su Yang to be hurt more than anyone else, so naturally he would be careful when he acted, making sure no accidents would occur. "Are you trying to contact Su Yang?" Qing Ya asked thoughtfully. Yang Kai nodded. He and Su Yang both cultivated the yin-yang joyous unification art. The joyous unification art had 3 stages. At the very beginning, one's body had to be merged before they could dual cultivate, but at the second stage, there was no need for physical contact. One only needed to be close to each other and not too far away from each other to be able to fuse their yuan qi and sublimate their mind and soul. Whether it was cultivation or battle, this was greatly beneficial to both parties. Currently, Su Yang's body was wrapped in a thick layer of ice, so there was no hope for the first stage. This layer of ice was extremely solid and had been condensed from Su Yang's yuan qi, so Yang Kai didn't want to break it. He only hoped to use the second stage to dual cultivate with Su Yang and see if he could use this opportunity to communicate with her. However, even after trying for so long, he still hadn't made any progress. Su Yang's yuan qi didn't respond to his calls. The two simply couldn't merge. Don't waste your energy. I don't know what kind of dual cultivation technique you're cultivating, but the ice body locked heart is one of my ice sect's secret arts. Once you use it, you'll lose all sensation. I don't think your dual cultivation technique will be any better than the ice body locked heart and be able to break through this shackle. Qian Yu splashed cold water on Yang Kai. Yang Kai turned a deaf ear to her words, his brow furrowed. He had been experimenting for half a month but hadn't made any progress, so now it seemed that he could only try using the third stage of the joyous unification art. If it still didn't work, then Yang Kai would be helpless and could only wait for Su Yang to wake up on her own. Yang Kai didn't expect to wake Su Yang up right now. Using the ice body locked heart wouldn't do her any harm and would instead benefit her, so there was no need to wake her up now. Yang Kai just wanted to be able to communicate with her and see what she was thinking right now. If Su Yang didn't want to stay in Ice Sect, Yang Kai would immediately take her away, but if Su Yang said she wanted to stay here, Yang Kai would comply. This place was simply a cultivation paradise for Su Yang. Even though the world was so big, it was difficult to find such a suitable environment. Seeing him contemplating, Qian Yu coldly snorted and no longer tried to provoke him. Qing Yue sighed softly and said, Yang Kai, there is a saying that haste makes waste, you shouldn't be too impatient. Yang Kai grinned, raising his head and asking, since your ice sect has such a secret art, is there no way to dispel it? Qing Yue shook her head, unless the user dispels it themselves, outsiders have no way to do so, let alone establish a connection with it. It is precisely because once the ice body locked heart is used, one will lose all perception, so it can be used to assist my ice sect's disciples in their cultivation. I understand, Yang Kai nodded. Yang Kai, there's something I want to ask you. Qing Yue hesitated for a moment, her expression somewhat embarrassed. You want to know when I'll be leaving? Yang Kai showed a playful smile, asking directly. Qing Yue was startled, not having expected his thoughts to be so astute, calmly saying, it's not that I want to drive you away, it's just that my ice sect doesn't accept outsiders. Su Yang is one thing, but your arrival here is a violation of my ice sect's rules. Don't worry, I don't plan on staying here forever. This place is so cold that the secret art I cultivate is somewhat suppressed. Yang Kai curled his lips, but for the time being, I don't plan on leaving. Ian, I want to enter retreat for a while, I hope no one will disturb me. Enter retreat here? Qing Yue keenly noticed something. You don't want to try to establish a connection with Su Yang, do you? Little brat, I advise you to give up and leave as soon as possible, Qian Yu said with obvious disdain. Qian Yu said with a look of disdain towards Yang Kai, no one can form a connection with someone who has used the ice body sealed heart, so don't waste your efforts. Su Yang is here, whether she joins my ice sect or not, I will take good care of her. There's no need for you to worry about her. She doesn't need your care. Yang Kai glanced at her coldly before turning to Qing Yue and saying, Sect Master, please agree to this little brat's request. Fine. Qing Yue nodded helplessly. I'll allow you to enter retreat in my ice sect, but only once. When you emerge, no matter what happens to Su Yang, you must leave. At that time, whether you want to take Su Yang with you or leave her here is up to you. My ice sect will not interfere. Many thanks, Sect Master. Yang Kai nodded slightly. Qing Yue was much easier to talk to than Qian Yu. She was young and beautiful, and her voice was soft and gentle. He couldn't help wondering if she and Treasurer Meng were old friends. However, when he thought of her standing together with that old man Meng Wu Ya, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a sense of regret. As he thought of this, the expression in his eyes became strange. Qing Ya frowned but didn't ask any more questions, quickly leaving with Chen Yu. After they left, Yang Kai took a deep breath and stared at the jade figure sleeping inside the ice, his eyes softening. After staring for a while, Yang Kai closed his eyes and placed his hands on the ice covering Su Yang's body, his divine sense bursting forth. The third stage of the joyous unification art was the fusion of soul and soul. When Yang Kai and Su Yang parted ways in the past, they had already reached a level of mutual understanding, but they had never tried to dual cultivate through soul fusion. Now, he could only use this method to see if he could reach a connection with Su Yang. Constantly calling out to Su Yang with his divine sense, Yang Kai's true qi also burst forth from his hands, penetrating the thick layer of ice and entering Su Yang's body, pouring it into her meridians. There was no response, as if Su Yang had really lost all consciousness. Not only was there no movement from her body, but even her consciousness was also completely still. At this moment, she was simply a sleeping ice doll. Yang Kai didn't become anxious, nor did he feel discouraged, constantly repeating this monotonous action. He believed that with the deep bond between him and Su Yang, there was a high chance he could break through the ice body locked heart and achieve resonance with Su Yang's consciousness. Chapter 737. Time flew by and Ice Sect's usual tranquility was restored. Although the Saint Realm Masters could clearly feel a burning hot aura emanating from one of the icebergs, all of them had received Qing Ya's orders and none of them dared to disturb it. 10 days passed, 1 month passed, 2 months passed. The burning hot energy aura never ceased, blooming from time to time. Although they didn't really like Kai Yang, his perseverance made them look at him in a new light. From time to time, Qing Ya and Chen Yu would stare towards the direction of the icebergs and sigh faintly. Inside the ice room, Yang Kai seemed to have been bewitched, mechanically repeating his actions, Yuan Qi and divine sense constantly transmitting messages to Su Yang. In the first few days, he didn't get any response. But gradually, he seemed to feel some unusual movements. It was as if there was a divine sense that was trying to respond to him but was unable to find the direction to respond. Perceiving this, Yang Kai's spirits rose and he began sparing no effort. After an unknown amount of time, even Yang Kai felt a deep sense of exhaustion. Suddenly, Yang Kai's divine sense was plunged into darkness, as if it had fallen into a bottomless abyss, losing all sense of direction. A bone-chilling chill spread from his soul, causing Yang Kai to shiver uncontrollably. Looking around, all he could see was endless darkness, without a trace of light. The only thing he could clearly feel was an intense chill. Here, a kind of loneliness and longing spread, and faintly, Yang Kai heard a subtle voice calling out to him. His heart trembling, Yang Kai suddenly realized that this was Su Yang's spiritual world. After using the ice body locked heart, she had sealed off all her senses, so her consciousness was completely dark, but she still had a trace of her own subconsciousness. Just as she was about to respond to Yang Kai, it was as if she had fallen into a nightmare, unable to break free from the shackles of darkness. Yang Kai searched desperately, his footsteps never stopping, but the road under his feet seemed endless. His divine sense surged wildly, piercing into the dark space, transmitting his emotions in all directions. Somewhere, Yang Kai received some unusual feedback, so he stopped in place and closed his eyes to sense. A moment later, he slowly opened his eyes and saw a faint light blooming in the darkness in front of him. Yang Kai grinned as his soul avatar quickly rushed towards the direction of this light. As he approached, a familiar aura was transmitted to him from this light. It was none other than Su Yang's spiritual energy. The light grew brighter and brighter, and when Yang Kai passed through it, the darkness around him, the surrounding area. Seeing this scene, he found this scene, he was extremely familiar with it. High Heaven Pavilion. Scanning his surroundings with his divine sense, Yang Kai found his old house, Su Yang's small loft, the contribution hall, and many other familiar buildings. Everything was there, even the roads leading to the contribution hall. The only difference from High Heaven Pavilion was that there was no one here. It was very peaceful, and it was extremely cold, with ice everywhere. This was Su Yang's spiritual world. Everything could be constructed according to her thoughts, just like in Yang Kai's knowledge sea. The 5-colored soul-warming lotus had transformed into a 5-colored island. Su Yang's spiritual world presented the scene of High Heaven Pavilion. The only explanation was that she missed the time in the sect, so she subconsciously arranged her spiritual world like this. This wasn't something she had deliberately created. Yang Kai was well aware of this. Unfortunately, here, Yang Kai still could not find any trace of Su Yang. Standing in place and thinking for a moment, Yang Kai smiled slightly, soon knowing where Su Yang was. His soul avatar set foot on the path he had not set foot on for a long time, passing through the various paths in the sect and arriving at the coiling dragon stream behind High Heaven Pavilion. Beside the huge coiling dragon stream, there were several fruit trees swaying in the wind, with several red fruits hanging from them. These fruit trees were personally planted by Yang Kai. When the demon lord escaped from the coiling dragon stream, these fruit trees had been destroyed, but now they reappeared in Su Yang's spiritual world. Standing beside the fruit trees, Yang Kai reminisced for a while before suddenly jumping down. Once he was in midair, he quickly turned around and drilled into an immortal's cave on the cliff face of the coiling dragon stream. This was Kai Yang's secluded cave mansion. When he was very weak, he had spent a great deal of effort to carve out this secluded cave mansion. Every piece of rock in this secluded cave mansion was carved out by him using his true chi. The cave mansion was not big, only about the size of 2 rooms. The outer room was where Yang Kai usually meditated and cultivated, while the inner room had a stone bed where he rested. Little senior sister Xia Ningchang often took a nap on this stone bed. Passing through the outer room, Yang Kai came to the inner room and saw a familiar and beautiful figure lying on the stone bed. Even in her spiritual world, Su Yang was still asleep. After using Ice Sect's secret art, she had even sealed off her divine sense. If not for this, she would have been able to sense Yang Kai's existence. Slowly walking over, Yang Kai stopped beside the stone bed and slowly squatted down, looking at the sleeping beauty, his face filled with tenderness. Seemingly aware that someone had arrived, Su Yang's eyelashes trembled slightly and her brow furrowed slightly, but after a moment, a smile appeared on her face, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Her long eyelashes trembled even more, and suddenly, she opened her eyes and stared blankly at Yang Kai, who was squatting beside her bed. Yang Kai was stunned. Staring at each other, he still seemed to be in disbelief. Su Yang, on the other hand, pursed her lips and giggled, the surrounding chill quickly reducing by a lot. Su Yang, you. Yang Kai was dumbfounded. Breaking into someone's knowledge sea without their permission. Junior brother, your courage isn't small. Su Yang looked at Yang Kai reproachfully and gritted her teeth. How did you wake up? Yang Kai was extremely excited. Didn't you use the ice body locked heart? Su Yang slowly sat up and smiled. Yes, but when I used it, I placed a seal. What seal? Yang Kai asked. If your divine sense breaks in and finds me, I will wake up for a moment. Wake up for a moment? Yang Kai frowned. Su Yang gently nodded. Only my divine sense will wake up. My body will remain in the state of ice body locked heart. This, I'm afraid Elder Qian Yu doesn't know. Ice body locked heart. Su Yang had thoroughly comprehended it and had many advantages when using it. Qian Yu had only thought that Su Yang could use the lowest level of ice body locked heart, but she had not expected that she had already thoroughly comprehended this secret skill. Why do you want to do this? Yang Kai was puzzled. It's faster to cultivate like this. Su Yang swept her eyes over Yang Kai. You seem to have become stronger. If I don't cultivate properly, won't I become a burden to you in the future? Yang Kai laughed dumbfoundedly, only now understanding why Su Yang had gone to such great lengths. What if someone breaks into your knowledge sea? Yang Kai suddenly thought of a terrible possibility. Su Yang was sleeping here, unaware of the outside world, so if someone broke in with bad intentions, she wouldn't be able to resist. What others can't do, only you can. Perhaps those powerful masters can break through my divine sense defenses, but if that's the case, I will take them down with me and won't let them get away with anything, Su Yang said resolutely. You're making trouble. Yang Kai couldn't help reprimanding her in fear. Su Yang didn't care, reaching out her hand and gently stroking Yang Kai's cheek, softly saying, You seem to have suffered a lot. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. No, I haven't. I've been taken care of all this time. That's good. How long has it been outside? Only about a year has passed since you fell asleep. Only a year. You found me so quickly. Saying so, Su Yang's face was filled with a happy and sweet smile. Then shouldn't senior sister give me a reward? Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. What kind of reward do you want? What do you think? Su Yang's white neck instantly became flushed red, and her pair of beautiful eyes became watery. We haven't tried the third stage of the joyous unification art yet. Yang Kai stared at Su Yang with a burning gaze, his eyes filled with a strong sense of aggression. Junior brother. Su Yang couldn't bear it and became extremely shy. The third stage was the fusion of their souls. Su Yang naturally understood this point. Although she and Yang Kai had already done the deed of husband and wife, if their souls really merged, she still couldn't let go. Once their souls merged, it meant that they would open up all their secrets to each other, no longer hiding anything from each other. Su Yang. Yang Kai unceremoniously grabbed Su Yang's small hand and kept stroking it, his eyes like a wolf hunting for food in the snow, glowing with a green light. Su Yang struggled to break free but didn't move, biting her red lips and sitting on the stone bed without saying a word, her face still red. Seeing her like this, Yang Kai no longer had any scruples and directly jumped onto the stone bed, sitting down cross-legged facing Su Yang, his hands pinching her soft hands as he grinned meaningfully. Soul intercourse, he had only heard about it in rumors. Yang Kai had never tried it before. It was said that it could provide a more pleasurable feeling than physical contact, and it was also very easy to become addicted to it. Once you tried it, you would never be able to get rid of it. Let's begin, Yang Kai said in a serious tone. Su Yang nodded gently. The two of them simultaneously circulated the joyous unification art, and in the next moment, their soul avatars suddenly turned into fluorescent light and dissipated into the stone room. These fluorescent lights intertwined and chased after each other. Faintly, a kind of erosive sound resounded between the heavens and earth. Yang Kai was drunk, he felt as if he had fallen into a honeypot and was unable to extricate himself. The comfort and pleasure that came from his body and mind caused him to rise up and down. This kind of carefree feeling was almost impossible to describe with words. Although there was no physical contact, this kind of pleasure was just like the legends, countless times more intense. He could perceive that Su Yang's soul was wrapped around him, and as their souls collided, neither of them could control themselves. Both of them had penetrated deep into the depths of the other's soul, but neither of them spied on the other's secrets, even though both of them had opened their hearts to each other. No matter who it was, both of them were completely immersed in the feeling of soul intercourse, experiencing the beauty of transcending the physical body. As their souls merged, both of their soul avatars underwent delightful and subtle changes. Chapter 738. The art of yin-yang joyous unification. During dual cultivation, not only would it allow a man and woman to fuse and converge their yuan qi, but even their divine sense would undergo earth-shaking changes. While experiencing this sensation, Su Yang also felt a profound and mysterious energy being transmitted from Yang Kai's soul avatar to her. Yang Kai shared all of his insights into the heavenly way and martial Tao with her. Su Yang didn't dare neglect and opened her heart to accept this energy, imprinting it into the depths of her soul. Yang Kai's soul also benefited greatly. Although Su Yang's insights were no longer of much use to him, under this fusion, he could clearly feel that his soul was rapidly becoming stronger and his spiritual energy more condensed. Inside the ice room, as the two souls converged, the yuan qi in their bodies also involuntarily burst forth, fusing and interacting, flowing through each other's bodies according to the art of yin-yang joyous unification. Every time it flowed, the yuan qi would become purer. This time's dual cultivation allowed both of them to obtain unimaginable benefits. Suddenly, behind Yang Kai, the phantom of a giant dragon appeared. At the same time, on the surface of Su Yang's body, the phantom of an ice phoenix also appeared. The two ice phoenixes absorbed the two's yuan qi and rapidly expanded, filling the entire ice room in just a moment. A resounding dragon's roar rang out, and a resonant phoenix's cry echoed. The 3,000 glacial worlds shuddered, and the icicles hanging at the bottom of the ice peaks instantly turned into fine powder. Ice cubes rustled as they fell down. Hong hong. Two sensational energies of diametrically opposed nature burst out from inside the ice mountain and soared into the sky. From Ice Sect's Ice Master Qing Ya to the ordinary disciples, all of them were alarmed, their expressions changing greatly as they rushed out of their respective ice mountains. Qian Yu was also startled. She had been meditating in her own ice mountain when she felt these two unusual energy fluctuations and naturally rushed out to see what was happening. As far as the eye could see, the other three elders of the sect were all standing in the void, staring up at the sky with dignified expressions, their eyes trembling. Even Ice Master Qing Ya's pretty face was solemn. Sect Master. Qian Yu hurriedly approached them and called out, but she didn't get any response. Looking in the direction they were looking at, Qian Yu's beautiful eyes narrowed. In the sky, there was a giant dragon that was more than 1,000 feet long and shone with golden light like a blazing flame. It was a magnificent and bizarre scene, and beside the giant dragon, there was a huge ice phoenix that was sparkling and translucent, and its entire body was ice blue in color. It spread its wings and fluttered in the air. A dragon and a phoenix chased each other playfully, creating a grand scene. From the body of the dragon and phoenix, everyone could feel a pressing heat and a biting chill. This kind of heat and chill was not something that anyone present could underestimate. What shocked Qing Ya and the others the most was that there were two somewhat familiar auras coming from the Golden Dragon and Ice Phoenix. These were the auras of Yang Kai and Su Yang. Just when everyone was shocked, the chasing dragon and phoenix suddenly changed direction and flew straight towards Qing Ya and the others. The several Saint Realm elders all paled and quickly condensed their yuan qi, secretly raising their guard. The Golden Dragon and Ice Phoenix flew 1,000 meters in front of the group and slowly came to a stop, the Golden Dragon in front and the Ice Phoenix behind, the two closely intertwined, as if they were husband and wife. The Golden Dragon's two gong-sized eyes stared at Qing Ya and the others with interest, giving off a human-like aura. Everyone couldn't help feeling nervous. Looking at these two eyes, they couldn't help feeling inexplicably small, as if they could be destroyed at any moment. This was especially true for Qian Yu. She always felt that when this golden dragon stared at her, there was a strong sense of warning. Qing Ya frowned as she circulated her yuan qi to resist the oppressive aura coming from the Golden Dragon and Ice Phoenix, tentatively asking, "Yang Kai?" A hint of astonishment flashed through the Golden Dragon's eyes. It suddenly turned around and left with the Ice Phoenix. Amidst the resounding dragon's roar and Phoenix's cry, the dragon and Phoenix gradually moved further and further away. Soon, they disappeared. It wasn't until they had left that everyone from Ice Sect couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief. As the cold wind blew, everyone discovered that their backs were soaked with cold sweat. Looking at the disappearing backs of the dragon and Ice Phoenix, Qing Ya fell into deep thought. She could feel that they hadn't simply left, but had instead decided to play around in this ice world for a bit. Sure enough, a moment later, a rumbling sound came from the distance, obviously caused by the dragon and Ice Phoenix. Qing Ya shook her head and smiled bitterly before waving her hand. "Let's go back, it's fine." "Sect Master, could this have been caused by that little brat?" Qian Hao frowned and asked uncertainly. When the dragon and Ice Phoenix first appeared, it was indeed above the ice mountain where Yang Kai and Su Yang were, but with the strength of these two juniors, how could they have created such a huge disturbance? "Probably," Qing Ya smiled lightly, "they'll come back." "They'll come back." Qian Hao's expression changed. "Didn't you notice? The souls and consciousnesses of those two children are inside that dragon and Ice Phoenix. That dragon and Ice Phoenix are manifestations of their condensed yuan qi. Their bodies are still in my Ice Sect. If they don't come back, where can they go?" So he woke Su Yang up. Qian Yu heard this and asked happily. "I don't know, we'll ask them when they come back." Qing Ya smiled. "That little brat is really hateful, making such a big disturbance. Is he trying to warn my Ice Sect not to mistreat Su Yang?" Qian Yu ground her teeth, thinking back to the warning look in the golden dragon's eyes when he looked at her just now. She couldn't help feeling angry. But sect master, with their cultivations, their bodies can't store such a huge amount of true essence, right? Qian Hao was puzzled. If what Qing Yue said was true, and the dragon and ice phoenix were manifestations of Yang Kai and Su Yang's Yuan Qi, how much Yuan Qi would that have cost? Did they really have such a huge amount of Yuan Qi in their bodies? Su Yang cultivated an ice attribute secret art, so if her body didn't have enough Yuan Qi, she could easily supplement it by mobilizing the surrounding ice attribute energy. So how did Yang Kai do it? Unable to understand, Qian Hao shook his head. In the distance, while the dragon and ice phoenix were chasing each other, Yang Kai and Su Yang's consciousnesses were constantly communicating. During their recent dual cultivation, it seemed that every time a dragon and ice phoenix would appear, but Yang Kai and Su Yang had never thought that their souls would be able to enter this dragon and ice phoenix. But this time, because their souls were fusing, they were able to achieve such a feat. This inadvertent discovery made Yang Kai realize that the dragon and ice phoenix diagrams engraved on his and Su Yang's backs were not just simple diagrams, they also contained a huge amount of energy that could be transformed into powerful soul skills. Deliberately running over to ice sect's people was indeed what Yang Kai's intention was, as Qian Yu had guessed, to deter and warn ice sect's people not to meddle in Su Yang's affairs in the future, lest they make a mistake again. Regarding this, Su Yang seemed to feel a little apologetic and scolded Yang Kai, saying that he shouldn't have acted like this. While chasing after each other, the pair continued to communicate. After transforming into the dragon and ice phoenix, the world they saw was very different from before, as if the entire world was under their control, causing their state of mind to sublimate greatly. Somewhere, Yang Kai came to a stop and stared at a towering iceberg in front of him. He felt that there seemed to be some kind of enormous energy inside this iceberg. If it were any other time, even with his divine sense, it would have been impossible for him to sense this, but at this moment, his soul had entered the golden dragon's body, so his senses were particularly sharp. Su Yang apparently also noticed this and stopped beside Yang Kai, staring at the iceberg in a daze, transmitting her divine sense to him. I've heard that some ancient icebergs are prone to producing precious treasures. Senior Ice Master once obtained one. Qian Hao and Elder Qian Yu also obtained one. Could it be there is such a thing inside this iceberg? What is it? Yang Kai asked in amazement. Cold ice jade crystal. It's a saint-grade material that is of great help to those who cultivate ice attribute secret arts. Yang Kai's spirit shook. Whether or not there is one, we'll know when we see it. Saying so, the golden dragon's body slammed straight into the iceberg, exuding a scorching heat that seemed capable of melting all things. Hong. The iceberg shook a few times, and the giant iceberg that had existed for who knows how many millennia cracked open, spreading out like a spider web across its surface. Although the iceberg was damaged, its sturdiness still exceeded Yang Kai's expectations and it did not collapse. Su Yang did not say a word as she stood beside Yang Kai, the four of them exchanging glances. In the next moment, the two of them exerted their strength at the same time and the golden dragon and ice phoenix disappeared like lightning. The two of them working together was several times more destructive than Yang Kai's single attack. Without the slightest sound, Yang Kai and Su Yang passed through the iceberg and arrived on the other side. After waiting quietly for a moment, a rumbling sound rang out and the huge iceberg collapsed. At the same time that the iceberg shattered, the energy fluctuations Yang Kai felt before also became clearer. But before he could search for them, his vision suddenly shook and a strong sense of fatigue spread out from the depths of his soul. Not only did he feel this way, but Su Yang also seemed to feel the same, her ice phoenix body constantly fluctuating, as if it could collapse at any moment. Junior brother, I seem to be a little tired. Let's go back first. Yang Kai hurriedly said. This was the first time they had merged their souls into their dragon and phoenix bodies, so it was inevitable that they would not be able to adapt. At this time, it was necessary to return to their bodies and recuperate for a while to avoid any serious damage to their souls. Hearing this, Su Yang nodded gently and quickly returned with Yang Kai. Ice Sect, after a short period of silence, once again became restless. As the two huge energy fluctuations approached, The Golden Dragon and Ice Phoenix really returned, and in a hurry, they disappeared into one of the icebergs. Looking at the position they disappeared from, Qing Huai shook her head and smiled bitterly. It's them, those two children. Qian Yu, come with me and take a look. Qian Yu quickly responded. Chapter 739. Inside the ice room, Yang Kai and Su Yang's souls returned, and after a short conversation, Su Yang fell into a deep sleep again, sealing off her 5 senses. After receiving Su Yang's instructions, Yang Kai calmed down. This time, when she used the ice body locked heart, she would need to directly break through a minor realm before she would awaken. In other words, when she broke through to the second-order transcendent realm, Su Yang would voluntarily release herself from her current state. This was also one of the restrictions she had placed on herself when she used this secret technique. After learning the truth, Yang Kai was no longer worried about taking Su Yang away from Ice Sect. The environment here was very suitable for her cultivation. Allowing her to stay here would be more beneficial for her. Moreover, Ice Master Qing Huai and Qian Yu were really good to her. Although Yang Kai somewhat disliked Qian Yu, Su Yang had put in a lot of good words for her, so Yang Kai didn't hate her as much. After adjusting his breathing, the fatigue in his soul gradually faded. Feeling the 2 life auras outside the ice room, Yang Kai got up and opened the door to his room. Sure enough, Qing Huai and Qian Yu were standing outside, and after seeing Yang Kai, a complicated light flashed across the 2 women's beautiful eyes. Su Yang didn't wake up. Qian Yu glanced over and asked in surprise. She woke up for a while then fell asleep again, Yang Kai explained faintly. Qian Yu looked at him and frowned slightly. She found that this little brat's hostility towards her seemed to have reduced significantly, but she didn't know why. You should have talked about it in detail, right? Qing Huai asked softly. Yang Kai gently nodded. We did. Then what was your decision? Su Yang will remain here. I ask Senior Sect Master to take care of her. Qing Huai smiled lightly. Rest assured, although my ice sect does not accept outsiders, out of respect for Mengwu Huai, I won't treat her unfairly. Many thanks, Sect Master, Yang Kai said solemnly. In fact, even I didn't expect that someone would be able to awaken a disciple who had used the ice body locked heart. You really are an eye-opener. This also proves that the feelings between you and Su Yang are not ordinary. Qing Huai's pretty face flashed a look of admiration. Yang Kai just smiled and didn't explain further. Although part of the reason for this was because he had summoned them, the most fundamental reason was that Su Yang had set up a barrier in advance. If it wasn't for her restriction, Yang Kai reckoned that even if he was lucky enough to break into her spiritual world, he wouldn't be able to find her soul. I still have one more thing to ask you. Qing Huai suddenly said with a solemn expression. Seeing her so serious, Yang Kai couldn't help but become serious and nodded. Sect Master, please speak. What kind of dual cultivation technique are you and Su Yang cultivating? What happened? Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a bit strange. Ice Sect's disciples cultivated ice attribute secret arts, and they had always been pure-minded and few desires, so they had nothing to do with dual cultivation. Yang Kai didn't understand why Qing Huai was suddenly interested in this. Even if she knew about this secret art, she probably didn't have anyone to dual cultivate with. Don't be so vigilant, I'm not trying to inquire about your secret art, I just have some concerns. Qing Huai's brow furrowed slightly as she pondered for a moment before slowly saying, Do you know, a long time ago, there were several top forces in Tongxian realm? Oh, what kind of forces? Great forces that could cover the sky with a single hand. Qing Huai quickly said, these forces were once the strongest in Tongxian realm. In their era, the demon race, the monster race and other races didn't dare act too presumptuously. That was the era when humans were the masters. Today's demon land, the territory of the monster race, was also human territory at that time. There were such forces. Yang Kai was extremely surprised. Qing Huai nodded lightly. Qing Huai nodded slightly, however, some kind of unforeseen event happened later on. All of these forces suffered a great loss in strength, and some of them even lost their most fundamental inheritances. After losing their inheritances, These forces were unable to recover from this setback, and gradually declined. However, a centipede dies but never falls down. Although these forces have declined, there are still a few that have flourished to this day and have yet to be destroyed. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly. Ice sect is one of them? Qing Ya was stunned for a moment before revealing a wry smile and nodding. My ice sect is one of them. Back then, ice sect had tens of thousands of disciples and was prosperous for a time, but after that incident, our elders moved ice sect here and lived in seclusion, no longer paying attention to the disturbances of the outside world. Yang Kai was stunned. What kind of unforeseen event happened that caused such a great force to suddenly decline? Qing Ya shook her head. I don't know, too much time has passed. All I know is bits and pieces of the past. Why is Sect Master telling me all this? Yang Kai asked curiously. These past events probably had nothing to do with him, right? Because I remember that at that time, there seemed to be a disciple of one of these forces who improved their strength through dual cultivation. The top masters of this force were known as the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix Empress. When the two of them joined forces, they were almost invincible. What's more, the two of them also held the most fundamental inheritance of that force. When they fought, a dragon and a phoenix would appear. Saying so, Qing Ya stared at Yang Kai with a scorching gaze. Yang Kai's expression brightened. Sect Master means. Qing Ya smiled softly. I'm just guessing, I don't know if it's true or not. However, a general dual cultivation secret art is one that neglects the fundamentals and focuses on the details. The dual cultivator's foundation is unstable and their true qi is impure, making it difficult for them to achieve great things. However, you and Su Yang are different. The secret arts you both cultivate are obviously extraordinary, and with the strange phenomenon that occurred today, I can't help but wonder if that legendary force is somehow related to you. I don't know. Yang Kai's expression suddenly became strange. Qing Ya looked at him with a smile and didn't ask any more questions. What Yang Kai thought was his own business, asking any more questions would seem like meddling in other people's business. Sect Master, do you remember what that force was called? I remember, it was called the Dragon Phoenix Riff. It should still be active today. If you want to find it, it shouldn't be difficult. Yang Kai nodded lightly, thinking for a moment before suddenly remembering something and asking suspiciously, something's not right, Sect Master. I once heard people say that a long time ago, the strongest master in the world was the great demon god of the demon race. How could those sects be able to cover the sky with one hand? Qing Ya pursed her lips and smiled. The great demon god was a legend of his generation, but that was even longer ago. What I'm telling you is from the era after the great demon god disappeared. So it's like that, Yang Kai nodded, also having some speculations in his heart. With the disappearance of the great demon god and the ancient demon clan being sealed, the demon race naturally wasn't a match for the human race. The Tongxian continent had a long history and was rich in legends. This was something the central capital couldn't compare with. Sect Master, I'll go out first, I'll leave when I come back, Yang Kai informed her before leaving the ice room. Looking at his disappearing back, Qing Ya slowly shook her head. I didn't want to drive you away. The sooner you leave, the sooner you'll be safe. Qian Yu snorted, quickly rushing into the ice room to check on Su Yang's current state, only relaxing after finding that she wasn't seriously injured. Inside the ice, Su Yang's mouth was still blooming with a happy smile. Yang Kai sprinted all the way, following the path he had taken with Su Yang before, heading towards the direction of the destroyed ice mountain. Half a day later, the collapsed ice mountain finally came into view. Without even releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai could clearly feel that under the collapsed ice mountain, there was an abundant energy fluctuation. Smiling happily, Yang Kai hurriedly rushed over. After a brief moment of bustling about, Yang Kai found a crystal-clear ice bead about the size of a longan fruit. The energy fluctuations were coming from this ice bead. Is this the cold ice jade crystal that Su Yang mentioned? Yang Kai held it in his hand and carefully examined it, quickly discovering that the energy contained inside it was truly extraordinary. What made him feel strange though was that inside this ice bead, there was a thick transparent liquid. This liquid exuded an extremely cold aura, and when Yang Kai released his divine sense into it, he felt as if he was about to be frozen. Yang Kai couldn't help showing a look of surprise. His current divine sense was not an ordinary divine sense, but rather a conflagrated knowledge C variant. If even he couldn't withstand this cold, it was easy to imagine how cold the liquid inside this ice bead was. Not continuing to investigate further, Yang Kai put the ice bead into his black book space and was about to return home when suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he caught sight of an unusual piece of ice. Fixing his eyes on it, he couldn't help narrowing his eyes. Inside this ice block, there was actually a dark skeleton. Atop this skeleton, the meridians were still there, but there was no flesh or blood, giving it a terrifying appearance. Could it be that one of Ice Sect's disciples had accidentally encountered an accident here? Yang Kai thought to himself. With the ice bead inside this ice mountain, this person must have been trying to find some kind of treasure when he was alive and accidentally froze inside it. However, what Yang Kai didn't quite understand was why this person's meridians were still there, but there was no flesh or blood. Yang Kai didn't want to pay attention to this, but after thinking about it for a moment, he reached out and picked up the ice block that sealed this skeleton, hefted it onto his shoulder, and flew back to Ice Sect. In any case, Su Yang would be taken care of by Qing Ya and the others in Ice Sect in the future, so if this person was really an Ice Sect disciple, Yang Kai should bring him back and let Ice Sect bury him. A day later, Yang Kai returned to Ice Sect. Just after arriving at the 3000 glacial world, Yang Kai ran into the Ice Sect elder named Qian Hao. This man frowned and stared at Yang Kai coldly, shouting in dissatisfaction, "Boy, why are you still in my Ice Sect? I'm leaving soon." Yang Kai didn't have a good impression of this man and replied coldly, tossing him the ice block he was carrying on his shoulder and shouting, "Right, this may be one of your Ice Sect's disciples who encountered some kind of accident outside." Qian Hao frowned and caught the ice block, but after glancing at it, his complexion suddenly changed greatly as his eyes trembled violently, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. The ice block that sealed this skeleton slipped from his hand and fell to the ground below. Hong, with a loud bang, Yang Kai stood mid-air, frowning as he stared at Qian Hao, not knowing why he was showing such a fearful expression. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.